Hello, and we are live. So, let's start off with the Suicide Squad stuff because that's gonna definitely be the. So, also everyone, welcome to episode 3 of Insert Name here. Right, so we we who I haven't watched the Suicide Squad movie or the other one for that matter. I haven't watched either. Data, you said you just had.
Yeah, I watched it this afternoon.
So how is it?
I think it was enjoyable. I laughed at some parts. There's some tropes going on, but I think it was more done out of humor. It's like the movie does not take itself very seriously, so it has room to be kind of have that quirky atmosphere to it.
So it was quite. So would you say it was like quite a bit different than the original one then?
Yeah, I think I would because the original wanted to be more of a serious
Yeah,
film.
dark. Yeah.
And this one definitely has some dark moments.
And-
Actually, the overall feel of it is kind of like that dark overlay, but it's not like a super serious. It's more like
Gotcha.
Right. For anyone who doesn't know, this version, the Suicide Squad, was directed by James Gunn, who did both Guardians of the Galaxy films.
yeah.
Supposedly, part of this film has opened, according to one of the whatchamface guys, DC Films president, like the head of the DC film side of things. He's saying that the door's open for him to come like to work on anything.
Oh, really? Hey.
Supposedly,
That's a heck of an offer.
yeah.
Yeah.
Hmm. Well, hopefully we see. I enjoyed the Guardians of the Galaxy movies. Obviously.
I liked the first one. I didn't like this.
No,
No,
but
just because it was inconsistent with the first one.
yeah, I didn't see all too much news honestly on the Suicide Squad. I did see a bit of stuff saying that they hadn't grossed quite as much as they would have liked.
Yeah, a lot of the news I've been seeing is mostly just like critic reviews versus audience reviews, and how they're kind of neck and neck.
Like on
Yeah,
the
they're
positive
pretty
side,
similar.
or
Like they're very
Well,
similar, like in a good way. Yeah,
Honestly, and
both good.
how rare is it for critic reviews and actual consumer reviews to line up? Like usually,
Oh,
you'll
extremely.
see like the critics loved it, but the actual people going and seeing it fucking hated it, or the people seeing it absolutely hated it, but or the people seeing it loved it, but the critics all said, "Oh, this is trash."
Right, because you have to understand, I guess, from like if you're looking at a critic's review, you're looking at more so a review on the composition of the film and everything that went into it, versus generally speaking, consumer review is going to be like, was it enjoyable to watch? Right?
Yeah, did it make me feel good? Did I like the pacing of it? It's like you could make the best movie in the world in terms of composition, but if your average person who views it has no it's like you're making a
No
movie
frame of
about
reference.
nth level genetics, and the people who are all seeing the movie aren't people who have a PhD in biology or genetics, and they can't understand it at all. It's going to be a shit movie from their perspective.
Exactly. So yeah, it is extremely surprising then to see
Now I
how
want that, Cam. Damn it.
that they matched up. Because yeah, you rarely, if ever,
No one
see
stopped you
critics
from getting
and
a PhD, Mando.
consumer reviews from lining up. So if Mando's getting PhD, who are we replacing him with?
No, I'm not going through 8 years of medical. That just so I can have a freaking diploma that says, "Oh look, I'm a doctor." When you can get the
PhD,
same
is that
information. I know you
that
can get
personal
a doctorate in
hygiene
anything.
disorder?
I know. I'm just saying, like specifically, like doctor fields take a long time. At least in the fields I would want a doctorate in. But anyway,
Look, you can get at least 2 of them before you're dead.
you don't know that.
I know. You could drop that at any point, but
Exactly. Oh, what a nice thing to say. No, but the movie, yeah, it's been getting some pretty positive review scores from both, like I'm looking here on Metacritic, IMDb, and Rotten Tomatoes. It's all consistent.
And honestly, too, I will say that's actually making me kind of want to go and see it. This is for a while I've sworn off of DC films because I felt like the only one that was really, or the only couple that were really good in like the last decade were the what was it, the Christopher Nolan Batman films?
Yeah, the Christopher Nolan and Christian Bale
those
Batman
ones had
films.
taken it was a good balance between, of course, we're in a world of superheroes and stuff, but it was a good balance between like being true to the source material and
But also like trying to be grounded with it.
yeah, it was grounded in the real world. Like I'm seeing this stuff and I'm like, hey, this seems like all of the tech I'm seeing, the tactics being used, this all seems plausible. Maybe not likely, but again, it's telling a story. So it felt like, hey, this could actually work with a lot of this stuff. And I felt like that helped to bring it in and immerse people in that world.
Right. And by the way, for anyone who is curious as to why Cam and I are so serious about our DC films, we're both huge Batman fans, as you can see by the background here.
Sir, you're big fans of who? Never heard of him.
Right, that's because he's an urban myth.
Yeah.
Doesn't actually.
Never heard of who? Yeah, neither have I.
Like you imagine, it's like a Candyman or Beetlejuice calls name 3 times and he comes.
Yeah.
Isn't he the guy that's on first?
No, who's on first?
Oh, they're different. Okay.
Who's on first? What's on second? Where's on third?
But I was gonna say, I think
Why is the shortstop? But
I was gonna say for the Suicide Squad, it was kind of nice how they kept so like for Amanda Waller, they kept the actress for her and stuff like that, right?
I saw, and for Margot Robbie, still Harley Quinn.
Now, if I understand this correctly, with this film, it's a complete redo, as in it's not building off of the other Suicide Squad movie.
It's a reboot.
It's
It's a soft reboot.
Existed, correct?
Yeah,
No,
yeah, I think so.
I'd call it like a soft reboot because it's
I don't
reusing.
know, I thought it was.
I would say yeah. I
I
think
didn't get that feel from it, but maybe.
really.
Well, like, and
I feel like it was advertised as such.
Was there anything that implied that the original Suicide Squad did happen? Any reference to earlier activities?
There is a scene when they're on a plane where Harley Quinn and the Boomerang dude are talking to each other like they've been on missions together before.
But that's not uncommon, just because
that could still be
they've done that before.
World.
Yeah,
I mean, it could be, but
that's almost every Suicide Squad movie. Because my only frame of reference for the Suicide Squad,
essentially, so we've got a new Suicide Squad, but we're coming in not at the introduction of it, but
right? Like this is not their first mission together.
Mm-hmm.
like
Whereas with the other one, we were seeing it being built. Now we're seeing them actually in their like heyday.
Which is honestly, I like that approach. It's what other versions of the Suicide Squad have done. Like this is my only frame of reference for Suicide Squad.
Stories are a dime a dozen.
Yeah, like my only reference for the Suicide Squad though is the I never read the comic books. I read of that specific title, the Suicide Squad comics, but I've read Batman, I've read Justice League, and also the Justice League cartoon had the Task Force X episode. By the way, cooler name for the Suicide Squad.
There in one of the cartoons I remember they had. All I remember was the very end of it, and if I remember right, they had. I want to say it was like a dedicated standalone cartoon or like animated thing.
Was it the Batman Assault on Arkham?
It might have been. All I really remember of it, like I know it was Suicide Squad, and I remember at the end of it, like I want to say like half the team, of course, dies like throughout the action and everything that's going on, and then at the very end of it, you have like I think it was showed like Batman meeting with Amanda Waller, and he was
And then
going, like, hey,
Deadshot
you-
snipes her at the end.
Yeah.
Yeah,
and then you've
that's
got, like,
assault on
and
Arkham. So that's
and it's
actually
like Batman like almost warned her, and then he's just like, "Nah, screw you."
yeah. So
And
that
then
actually
Deadshot
takes
shoots her.
place. That actually takes place in the Arkham games universe.
Cool.
Yeah, it's between
It
Origins and
was really
and,
interesting,
Asylum.
especially too because Waller's had
really?
just like
Yeah.
Batman. Waller's had plot armor for so long.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's the thing. It's kind of like the end. That's like the end of the Suicide Squad in that universe, I guess. So, but like you can tell, like in the beginning, it's like oh, not again. Like Harley Quinn and Captain Boomerang and what's face, so Deadshot are all like we've been here before.
That's the thing about Captain Boomerang; he'll always come back to you.
That was a horrible joke. I'm just gonna say it.
Yeah, well,
Hey,
it's not
my
as
joke's
bad as
like-
this one. Why did the Sharktacon cross the road to get to the hot
My
rod on the
jokes are
other
like
side?
Vader. They're
Uh,
terrible.
no,
By the
it's,
way, so not to divert too much into games, but I've actually come up with some Star Citizen themed jokes.
oh no.
Oh, let's hear him.
Okay, so if a avian bipedal race fights a war with humans and starts losing, are they Tuvarin?
I see what you did there.
Yeah.
You'd be shocked.
It's only for the
If-
lore nerds, and I
If
love it.
two hostile aliens have a conflict, do they resolve it with a Van Duel?
I'm not even gonna acknowledge
If-
that one.
If
I don't even want to warn.
if
Yeah, it
the
doesn't even warn their
UEE
response.
if the UEE finds an issue with their contract laws, do they banu it? That's as many as I've gotten so far. I'm sure I'll think of more.
I can't wait. I'm excited.
This is like a Fozzie Bear level comedy. Waka waka. But yeah, so the
If I tell
Suicide
dad
Squad.
jokes without being a dad, does that make me a faux pas?
Yeah, faux pas. Poser. No.
Poser, I barely know her.
So yeah, the Suicide Squad movie. I haven't seen it either of them, the live action ones at least. But I'm reading some good things. Obviously, some of these reviews are just saying like 1 and 0 here. These are user reviews, but a lot of them are like 5, 6, 7, 10, or
It's
somewhere.
like
10,
read
10,
one
9,
maybe,
8,
and-
10.
And it is just in general too. It's good to see decent films being
Whoa,
made again,
okay,
because
so-
for so long it just seems like it's
The
just,
more you scroll
it's just
down,
gonna stop being
the
shit
higher
out.
that it goes. So I'm like, okay, wow.
So, like, what are
that's a
some
lot
of these
numbers.
people's complaints if you just look at one of them?
One of the 0 one, spoilers, but I'm not gonna look at the spoiler one. Let's see. What's this one? This is 0 saying, whilst looking at the team from a different perspective was an interesting one. Never in my life I thought I'd see a movie fail so hard on every single aspect, from acting to writing, from action to CGI. Film feels sluggish from the first 5 minutes, despite being incredibly packed with action. The chemistry and the camaraderie from the characters is forced and unnatural, and its ending comes out of nowhere and leaves, almost as if the movie was
Yeah.
rushed to be finished off. This is a 0.
Which, and I guess it kind of speaks to the review itself, but it had twice as many downvotes as their
Yeah, you're
review.
seeing it, right there. More than twice. It's 7 more.
Hmm.
Let's see. This other 0 just simply says the movie is bad with silly jokes. Don't waste your money. Our time looks more like a movie, the MCU, than DC.
Because I'll be honest, I don't think they could screw the pacing up in that movie any more than they did the original.
I don't know. You'd be surprised. Hollywood's really good at outdoing themselves and fails.
Saying it looks like the
Yeah.
MCU does, honestly, I'd say that's a compliment.
Yeah, especially since especially since DC for the last 10 years, that's kind of been their goal.
They've been trying to build essentially, the DCU.
More like the last 8
Yeah.
years, because it was really after the success of the Avengers, which was in 2012. So the last 8 years, they've kind of been trying to copy Marvel's
Kind of
success.
crazy to think that the Avengers came out over 8 years ago because it was 2012, right?
Yeah, it's almost 10 years ago. 10 years next year, next May. Or this coming May, I should say. Coming May, it'll be 10 years.
Holy.
Yeah. Gonna age us. This one
I already
says
feel old enough. Jeez.
this one, literally a one review says, "What did I just watch? Terrible is not even descriptive enough word. Needless animal violence, mom killing jokes, high quality sex scene, dick jokes, plot is non-existent, character development sucks, and 90% of the jokes do not land. Do not see this movie. You really killed it, Gunn, and not in a good way. Now that you've blown it again, Warner Brother execs, blah 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 blah." Okay.
So essentially, not my kind of humor, not my.
Yeah.
Movie.
Understandable though.
That's fine, but
At least
that's
he
not a
explained
reason to
why
do
he
the
didn't
whole
like
movie.
it. I gotta give him props on that. Like he explains, okay, I'm not a fan of the dick jokes and like sadistic humor, like mom killing jokes and stuff like that. Like that's that's not my type of bag either. I like morbid jokes, but not just twisted jokes.
Just
I
straight
think
shock.
there's a lot of that kind of humor because most
It makes
of
sense
the
for Harley
characters
Quinn,
in the
yeah.
show are either hardcore murderers or they're clinically insane.
Right.
Right,
They're literally
they're
convicts on death
villains.
row. That's why they're there.
Yeah.
That's the whole point of Suicide Squad or Task Force X. They're death row
They're not
inmates
villains
that
in
get
a sense of the superhero versus villain. They're legitimate villains. In the
they're
real sense.
legitimate villains that
Right.
they're indoctrinated. For anyone who doesn't know what the Suicide Squad is, it's pretty much villains on death row get to cut down their sentence by working for the government in suicide missions, and they're called Task Force X. And it's an illegal government-funded operation headed by Mando.
So that way, and also too, like usually they have them with some kind of explosives in them. So if there's any risk of the mission being compromised, failing, the convicts do anything they don't like, up goes their head off. So.
Yep. Exactly. They have little explosives in their heads or neck.
Yeah,
so they can just.
in other words, I
boom,
guess like
head goes boom.
don't necessarily go to a movie about convicts on death row entering into a suicide mission if you're not looking for maybe a more serious,
the government literally
humor.
approaches them.
Yeah.
As they're like what was it in
This
the
movie
Justice
is
League
definitely
animation?
Definitely not good guys versus bad guys. They're all bad guys.
Yeah, it's
They're
bad
just
guys versus
different
bad guys.
levels of bad.
It's just
So,
one's
it's bad versus
one's gonna
worse?
kill somebody, one's gonna destroy the world.
So it's bad versus worse.
Exactly.
Some of these user reviews, let's see. 2 stars saying on Rotten Tomatoes, it was a watch once movie for me, was not good at all. Number 1 was so much better.
Interesting.
Got a 4.5 star saying this movie's amazing, and the suspense, over the board gory action, the directing, visual. So clearly this was his type of bag.
And that was really my point when we were talking earlier about, trying to say how you feel or whether somebody should watch this movie. It's almost impossible to give someone a yes or no answer because one, what you're expecting is going to be different than what I'm expecting, and
Right.
what you enjoy is going to be different than what I enjoy. So
I guess the best way to go about it. I guess the best way to go about it is to just say what the film had, like in terms of like type of humor and gore and stuff. And if you if you're talking to someone that knows you, like okay, I know you don't like the gory action stuff. Then I know okay, you didn't like it, so go based on your take. I don't know. It depends on who's telling you. Yeah, there's too many variables to recommend.
I have a pretty good description of the movie overall.
Yeah.
So it had the quirky, silly humor of the Thor movie. Was it the last Thor movie? Ragnarok, yeah.
Okay.
Like that one, I didn't really care for that movie as much as the rest of them because the humor seemed out of place. Anyway,
I didn't like it either. Don't worry.
It's got that kind of crazy, quirky, dry, strange humor with a whole bunch of gore and horrible disfiguration and violence on top of it.
Yeah. Okay.
So in other words, it's
So
kind of
is
just,
it like?
it's just James Gunn let loose.
Yeah, I guess
Yeah.
so. I don't really know much about James Gunn, but
Seems like a weirdo. He was fired from Disney for like tweets that he made back in like 2013 or something. But he was fired in like 2000 and I want to say 18 or 19
yeah.
for stuff he did.
If you say somebody seems like a weirdo, the only thing it takes for me to believe that is that they're part of Hollywood.
Yeah. Yeah, it doesn't
No,
really.
that's
Yeah,
fair.
exactly. I can say like they're all weirdos because honestly, it's not that hard to believe.
Yeah.
You see the shit they do, and it's like, yeah, there's no way you're just a straight person.
Yeah.
Well,
in,
I mean,
in terms of like, I don't mean that
in.
in sexual preference. I
Yeah,
mean straight
yeah,
like
I know
a
what
straight
you're saying.
arrow, like a what's face Boy Scout type way.
Yeah.
I would
Just
say
to clear
every
the
bit as
room, not
horrible
to no confusion.
And brutal as Daredevil's not the right word.
But the Marvel Netflix series
Deadpool,
is.
as the Deadpool movies without the
Okay.
intelligent humor on
Uh-huh.
top
So that's
Gotcha.
disappointing. Otherwise,
of it.
Yeah.
because I'm not a huge fan of the first, at least the first Deadpool in that. In some scenes I like, but not the movie in its entirety. I like the second one a little better because it dialed down on the sex jokes and stuff like that. Like on
Yeah.
the
Yeah,
dumb
like
the dumb
there's-
fart joke type stuff, and went more into the like I guess innuendo territory versus just dumb humor.
Well, yeah, I was
Yeah.
gonna say like
Your
there is
window.
definitely a place for morbid or inappropriate humor, but I feel like it best fits with like a more witty take rather than just a shock value. There you
Yeah.
go, jump
Yeah.
right.
Like I think a good scene from Deadpool 1 is when he's fighting Colossus and just breaking every limb.
Exactly.
Like, and it's like, he punches him in the groin, and it's like, oh, your poor wife.
Yeah, there are no witty jokes or intelligent humor in this movie. It's adult oriented in terms of content, but
But not in terms of humor.
yeah, the script is what you would expect for like children almost. It's very simple.
Very
You
very
don't have to
immature.
think about anything that's going on. Yeah, it's not. I don't want to say immature, but it's. I wouldn't say it's a smart movie.
In a sense,
It's
it's
not
more.
something to
It's
watch
less
if you
plot
are
driven. It's more. Yeah, it's less plot driven. More. If you're looking for a laugh every now and then, for sure, that's the kind of thing.
Yeah, if you're just going into a movie because you want to watch something and you're not expecting anything amazing because it doesn't have to be, and you don't mind some silly jokes that you know silly people would enjoy. I don't want to even say that because now I'm classifying people. But anyway,
Yeah, I get what you're saying.
How
It's
dare
essentially
you?
it like, okay. How we put it like this? So you're saying it's pretty much a good. If it's on cable and I'm bored, there's nothing better to watch. I'll watch it. But like
I
to use
definitely would
the
not
old school
spend
movie
money to
rating
go
system
to
that
the
we.
theater and watch it.
Yeah, so what he's saying is
I have
if you like
HBO,
the
so I
original,
basically get it for free. Well, I mean, I
Yeah.
pay for the streaming service, but
All right,
I wouldn't go pay $10 at a theater to watch it.
$10.
so you're saying is if you
here.
like the original and if you like Deadpool and you like the idea of both those mixed, then maybe it's something for you.
Maybe, but I don't know. I think if you liked the original and you like Deadpool, you won't like this one
Oh, really?
because
Well,
I mean,
I'm sure this one
Deadpool
tries to
was
be very
good
different.
because it was I want to say it was a pretty intelligent. You know, Ryan Reynolds, he's really fast thinking on his feet, and he's got some really funny jokes.
Yeah.
He's
And, I mean, his
hilarious off camera
character
too.
Was the
Like he
movie,
has.
basically.
You ever see his aviation gin commercials?
Yeah,
Yeah, he's hilarious.
and then the first Suicide Squad movie was a completely different feel and flavor overall. Like the characters were different. The dialogue still had some stupid. I'm pretty. I'll critique dialogue all day because I don't like just people saying.
No, because
things
that's
to
one of the
talk.
most important aspects that people overlook in filmmaking.
Yeah,
The dialogue, because it makes or breaks the characters and the tone. Because if your
Right.
dialogue is messy or unrealistic in terms of like how people would talk in that situation or just in general, then it takes you out of the film. Like that was my problem with Wonder Woman 84. Where
Right.
it's like you're watching it, and the dialogue is just like this is horrible. Like it's reminding me of like a chick flick. It's bad. It's worse than a chick flick.
Now that I think about it, the pacing is pretty bad. Like there's scenes where they try to get some character interaction. There's basically some cookie cutter scenes that a lot of movies try to put in to make you feel something for these characters or for a character in general, where they have their story about why they are the way they are, or something that they wanted as a child or whatever. And
Oh,
I
they do
don't
that.
like that style storytelling in this kind of movie because
Wait, they do the whole I wanted this as a child and now I get it as an adult type thing.
I
for the
wanted a
character?
pony as a child and I never got it.
it's like
That's why I want to kill everyone.
there's this horrible person who murders people, and they try to tell you a relatable story from their childhood, but that's not who they are now. So what does it even matter?
Yeah, why does it matter
Yeah.
who they were as a kid? It's like, everyone was a kid at one point. So it's like it's great that you're fleshing out the character, but at the same point, it doesn't matter for
The
them.
only way that
it's-
works is if you have the story be relevant to the situation they're in right now.
Exactly.
Well, even
It's
then,
like
it's
it
like
doesn't. It's like it doesn't matter that it shows like their house burning down as a kid, unless you make them like, okay, hey, they're a pyromaniac now. It's like they've had this fixation on fire ever since. Like, okay, sure, you're fleshing out the character and showing why they're a pyromaniac. Whatever.
yeah.
I mean, look,
Well,
when
I
you're
guess
doing,
it's a different thing too, trying to make it relatable, because it's like, I feel like most people can relate to you're a kid, you made a mistake, you have to, whatever happened, and something happened, right?
yeah, but the film
But
follows
most people don't deal
psychopaths.
with that by becoming a murderer, so it's
But
really hard to
the
connect
film,
with
yeah,
the
the film.
characters,
This is
right?
something
Like,
I just don't like in general right now at Hollywood and in big entertainment, and that is the current fad of doing villain movies. They
Right,
do it
so,
with
like,
Venom,
anti-heroes
Joker.
almost.
They're doing Suicide Squad. Obviously, that one kind of makes sense if I'm being honest, because they've done it before in animated movies and even Justice League cartoon episodes. But we had what's-his-face in that Justice League cartoon episode. The whole point was don't kill anyone. The whole we're undercover in the Watchtower, whereas here obviously they're going full bonkers, kill, murder. But my problem with the villain movie fed is you're trying to make a psychopathic murderer relatable
Yeah.
when they're the villain.
Well, yeah, and that's what I mean. Like, okay, there's like with anti-heroes, maybe there are certain aspects of them that are relatable, but I feel like anti-hero movies don't work because you're trying to relate to the hero or
Well, I
anti-hero.
mean, you
guess.
can.
'Cause
I would say you
for-
can.
You can do
a
an
villain.
anti-hero because they have noble
you can make it do
causes.
yeah. I mean, in a sense,
Well,
you can, but it's like
You can make a villain that is relatable, but generally, when that's done, it's done to go and hold them up as a mirror to the heroes. Because it's like when you have a villain who, for example, they're like, "Hey, I went through this horrible stuff as like a kid, and because of that, I swore to kill all these people or do all this horrible stuff." And it's like you can then have your hero character. It's like, hey, they went through something similar, but their choices are different. And so the villain is essentially a dark reflection of the hero in that, okay, hey, your reasoning at least is understandable. I disagree with your conclusions, but I can understand how you got to that.
Right.
In that way, you can
Sure,
make
yeah.
the hero relatable because you're like, hey, if that happened to me, I can't say necessarily I might not do similar action. But
Right, like,
it's
so like I
or
said-
taking like the same morals or ethics or
But they're not
guidelines,
taking
rules
those
that the
types of
hero
villains
follows,
because
but take
But I guess for me,
to an
the-
extreme, like that kind of shit.
Yeah, but I guess for me, so like, and I think they can work. They have to be extremely well written, though. I think the biggest thing is like, so there's a difference between trying to like relate them to the character and trying to relate the character to the situation they're in, right? Because
Yeah.
sure, I can relate to a situation, but I'll never be able to relate to like
right. Like,
It's
this,
some
and this
villain
is
who
the
murders
problem
people
too. Is
daily, right?
Cam, there are
So,
villains
sure,
like
yeah.
that. Cam, there
Yeah.
are villains like that. But what they're doing is they're taking the villains like Venom and Joker, where there are these murdering psychopaths.
Like the guys
you know,
who really have no redeeming qualities whatsoever. And you're
Venom
trying to
does,
make them
Joker doesn't.
someone to empathize with, and it's like, really?
But it's
Yeah,
like, and this
these
is
are
the problem.
horrible
Is also the characters that they chose, like Venom and Joker. Two of them, the two top villains who don't exist without the hero they're the villain of. Venom does not exist without Spider-Man. Because Spider-Man needs, Venom needs, whether it's through the meteor or the, whatever version of the symbiote coming to Earth or being made on Earth, through different continuities, it goes on Spider-Man first, then Eddie Brock, whereas Joker doesn't become Joker unless Batman tries to stop Joker when he's Red Hood trying to pull some heist. And then falls into the vat of acid. So, you don't have the villain without the hero there. So it's kind of weird. And also, Joker does not have any redeeming qualities whatsoever. He's a straight up murdering, child killing, child crippling psychopath. And Venom does have a really distorted moral compass, even in the comics. Like, as a villain, he's a weird one. So
Yeah, there's certain times where he's written as like
his whole thing is he wants to
anti-hero,
protect
but-
the innocent, and Spider-Man is not innocent. He's the destroyer of innocence because he was once innocent, and Spider-Man destroyed his innocence. So that's why he's targeting Spider-Man and all that. And they did in 1994. They did Lethal Protector run, which I thought was really good. It was okay. Let's turn Venom from a hero to an anti-hero. It was mainly because they made Carnage at that point, who was like the new scary symbiote villain.
Yeah, like
But
no
so,
morals type.
right, like literally just he's pretty much Marvel's answer to the Joker. Carnage, literally actually. But he's crazy. Like you have Venom, who he becomes an anti-hero in San Francisco. He's still killing people, but his moral compass is slowly kind of being reoriented, something more positive, to the point where they eventually did a storyline. They did a storyline called Separation Anxiety, where Eddie Brock kind of comes to his senses. And like
That's a
we
lot
kind
to
of
do
stop.
with him being a symbiote, though, right? Like the people he's on, they kind of share.
And that exactly that's part of why, because the
they rub
symbiote,
off on each other,
the symbiote itself, the Venom symbiote, has the
Wasn't
a
there a
sense
run
of
too where they had Venom while he was still on Eddie, and it was that like Eddie had gone off, joined the military, got hurt in the military.
no that wasn't Eddie, that was Flash Thompson. They did a Agent Venom thing.
Sorry, yeah.
They drew him with blonde hair for some reason instead of him being a red. He's normally a redhead, so it was confusing. But
So I was gonna say, there's somebody who commented the Joker is pretty good the Joker is pretty good actually. It's just not a good comic film, but an amazing film nonetheless. And that kind of touches back to what we were saying with like the Suicide Squad. It might be a good comic film, but it might not have the best composition. So with like all these reviews, it's kind of hard to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And really quick, I wanted to touch on like the relatable aspect. You shouldn't be able to relate to some horrible person, but if a movie is done well, you could understand how someone became what they are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like
that's the
Batman Under the Red Hood. The animated movie, Batman Under the Red Hood.
When we get first introduced to Magneto in the X-Men movies that came out, 10 years ago or so?
Literally the year 2000.
And we see him go, being in the concentration camps, and his mother being taken away from him,
and his
all
power
that shit.
surfacing.
You're like,
yeah.
Whoa, you can kind of understand where he's coming from. You don't agree with the methods or the conclusions he's making, but you're like, hey, I can understand this character a lot more.
Right. It doesn't excuse their actions, but it gives you a glimpse into how, or
it gives you the reason of why and
they made.
Yeah.
You understand the adversity of what they're going through, but you don't understand the conclusion they come to because
exactly
it's essentially what happens.
Right. It's pretty much look, every character you need to have the why, where, who, what, stuff like that. You need to ask why are they doing this? What's their goal? What happens if they don't achieve their goal? These are the questions you need to do whenever you're creating and writing a character for anything.
Yeah.
And for Magneto, we got that why, and we got the. We don't know the how he came to that conclusion. We can understand how he came to it. Just his experience was being in a concentration camp as a kid, being forced to do all sorts of horrendous things and labor and stuff. And because he had powers, it was even worse, because he was being forced to use his powers for the Nazis.
And tested on.
Yeah, and they tested on him, experimented on him. And, so we understand the character, we understand his motives, his reasonings, why he is the way he is. We just don't have to agree with how he does things.
Exactly.
Also, I have a really good comic. I have a Captain America comic where Magneto meets Red Skull and asks him, like, you are the real Red Skull, right? Like, not the imposter or something? He goes, yes. So then he proceeds to lock him into it in a bunker with no light or anything. He just has a few jugs of water and that's it. He just locks him in there like, you are now going to suffer. Bye.
I was going to say there were a couple of characters in the movie that I wanted to like, but I just couldn't because they weren't good people.
Understandable. Have a nice day.
Yeah.
Can I ask something? Does it bother anyone else that they're like they have some really cool looking costumes for some of the characters, but then you have Harley Quinn who has a very iconic look and she's just wearing normal street clothes? Like she came out of a cyberpunk game?
Yeah, like they're not wearing like the Harley Quinn outfit.
Don't go into this movie expecting anything to be logical or explained or work in any way that you would expect it to work, because that's not what this movie's about.
By the way, I'm not saying it has to be like the comic book or the animation accurate costume.
Yeah.
Like there have been some really good alternate takes on the classic Harley Quinn look, but we're not getting that.
You're saying just a bit more effort than a pair of shorts. And
a little bit more effort than just, this is my casual Friday look.
I thought it was hilarious that a lot of there are different characters that you don't expect to be there, but they all have like full superhero suits that didn't make any sense. Like, these are supposed to be criminals in prison. Why do they have super?
Well, because they're being then dealt. Like, the government's going to send them out to do a mission. Might as well have them as prepared as possible. Give them their costume maniac look. That's the things. They used to be called costume maniacs, and when they're not wearing costumes, it feels lacking.
I understand why they did it, but to me, it's like nonsensical. But
like, look, in the Batman Assault on Arkham movie that Cam and I were mentioning earlier, Harley Quinn's not wearing the classics. Like, it's a version of the classic suit, but it's not the classic suit. Like, it's like a crop top and stuff like that. It's an alternate take on it. Mm-hmm. Victor Wolfong says, I like IDW Megs and Magneto because of how Shakespearean tragedy-ish they are. Then he could proceed to say, I like her new look in Suicide, the new movie. Isn't it just the same as the old movie?
Don't ask questions.
No, I'm genuinely curious.
To me, the best kind of example I could give is the Breaking Bad series, where you see some regular guy go through all these experiences and turn into somebody that's pretty much a horrible person.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so it does look like it's a bit different in the newer one. Here's what I could find for an image.
Oh, good. Put it in the. But news regarding the film, though, we did get a. The box office projections are not looking good, and in fact are on a downward projection just ahead of its release in theaters and on HBO Max. I mean, it doesn't surprise me because it's on HBO Max as well. Oh, that actually doesn't look bad.
No, I didn't think so either. Like, they've actually got the...
Okay, I like that. No, I like this.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's got the jacket and everything.
Yeah, this looks good.
And it's Harlequin themed, not just, like you said,
right. It's not literally just like it's not like she's wearing jeans and a t-shirt or something, or a tank top. It's actual, like, Harley Quinn colors, the reverse red and black pattern. Even got the little diamonds.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a nice... I like it. That's a good movie look.
At least that's what I think it is from the picture.
I hope so. I haven't seen either of the films. I've
Hold
seen
on,
stills.
thinking
I've
again?
seen stills and trailers for both of them. But the trailers I've seen for the new one were in passing because it wasn't really a film I was following.
But yeah, I will say that is 10 times better than the original one.
Yes, agreed. Actually reminds me a lot of the Arkham series book, where it was like her costume was more leathery.
Mm-hmm.
What was I reading? Oh, right. The box office decline doesn't surprise me. It's kind of the same situation as Black Widow in that regard, where it's like you released it on streaming service at the same time as the movie theaters. Naturally, that's going to completely dip your box office number.
Yeah,
Because-
there's not much you can say.
First
It's-
off,
the
let
majority
alone
of
the fact that people are
gonna
gonna.
go to the theater anymore.
Let's just be realistic here. Go to a movie theater where it's going to cost $15 a ticket, at least here in New York, which means that if you're a family of, say, 3, you're going to be spending $45. $45, not
Nope, of
including
course not.
concessions. Just to see a film, or for the fee you're already paying on a monthly basis, supposedly, you can just watch it in the comfort of your own home.
Yeah, and I think we're gonna see a lot more of that now with like releasing on streaming stuff. It's probably gonna be more. You'll see big theatrical releases, like big releases of stuff like the Avengers Endgame or whatever
Right.
it might be, right? Like I think that'll be what people are more going to see in theaters, and these kind of movies will be streamed, I imagine, because
Variety's
with
Rebecca Rubin says the
the
film.
amount of people who just are watching at home now, it's
Yeah.
probably
So Variety
way
says
too
that the
big.
film will only generate up to upwards of $30 million in its opening weekend. However, they then state that experts predict that revenues could surpass $40 million in its first 3 days of release. This is from August 5th, by the way. So 2 days. So it's been 3 days since then.
So what did it release to?
It released to. I don't know.
I'll look it up, I guess, right now.
But yeah, they talk about how it was below the numbers they expected, And then they talk about other movies that have went release, streaming service and theater release at the same time. $30 million opening weekend put Suicide Squad behind Black Widow, Fast and Furious 9, A Quiet Place Part 2, Jungle Cruise, Godzilla vs. Kong, and Space Crams: A New Legacy.
Oh, Space Jams, yeah.
Yeah. So apparently it's behind all of those movies, despite the relatively positive feedback that it's getting as opposed to all the films I just mentioned.
Can I also just say, I hope they're done with the Fast and Furious franchise because
Oh, you know why they make them, right?
why 9?
At
Oh,
this
'cause they
point,
released to a big amount of
fuck
money.
the American audience. It's just for China at this point.
Yeah. They just released to a big amount of money, so they don't care. They're
Right.
gonna
They
keep
just figured we
kicking
can
it
release it
till
here too because there's no super strict censorship laws that are done on a case-by-case basis as in China.
Yeah.
Black Widow earned $80.3 million in its opening weekend. Fast 9 earned $70 million. Quiet Place Part 2 earned $47.7 million. Jungle Cruise $35 million. Godzilla vs. Kong brought in $32.2 million. And Space Cram 2 grossed $31 million. So it barely it missed by $1 million of Space Cram.
It doesn't make. It doesn't surprise me that it's behind Black
No.
Widow just because.
Well, yeah, your
that's an
big budget
Avengers.
Marvel movie with
Yeah.
Scarlett Johansson, Black Widow, is big names and stuff,
Yeah.
versus Suicide
And-
Squad, named after a film that didn't do well the first time around and wasn't super popular to begin with.
Yeah, I would say a lot of people that would have been interested in the Suicide Squad 2 movie, probably a lot of them already have HBO because
Right.
they like to watch the other DC movies, which are all on HBO.
Yeah, like all the animated ones are there.
Yeah.
And that's something to mention too, is all the animated Suicide Squad films are the least popular and least watched DC animated movies of just the DC films that they make. So
So
like,
just
Suicide
generally
Squad
as a
isn't
franchise.
one of their more popular It's honestly at this point it's kind of well known just to DC fans because of all the different animated projects and stuff. But it's not the most popular. It's still going to lose out to, the Trinity, Batman, and Wonder Woman, Justice League, and really any other character. But yeah, so, and then you got the Metacritics on Rotten Tomatoes. The film has an all-audience score of 84% from over 1,000 reviews. The average rating is 4.2 out of 5. And that's all audience, so user and critic alike. I think. I will check right. All audience. No, sorry, audience is their users. Okay, I thought they had like user and then critic, but they just call users audience, which is fine. The other sites could say user, so it's a little confusing. So that's just of the user reviews, not of critics. So that's still pretty good for user reviews.
Yeah, 4.2 out of 5.
Yeah,
absolutely.
One of the reviews gives the movie a 4.5 out of 5 stars, writing a spectacular orgy that is irrelevant, volatile, tongue-in-cheek, with generous helpings of violence and gore. Soundtrack is amazing, raw and edgy, matching the pace and tone of the movie. And anything, okay, anything can happen. Anything that can happen in the movie, which I very much enjoy over the previous installment. Perhaps a bit less on the gore, nevertheless thoroughly enjoyable. One of the reviews by Kwang Yong Q.
So that's a pretty good description, and whether you enjoy it would be based on whether you like those things or not.
Here's Jason W. gives the film a half star out of 5, writing, a boring, shallow, pointless movie attempts to cover up a poor plot with a non-linear narrative, fails miserably. All the key plot points in the story are just simplistic, lazy writing. You can pick what was going to happen a mile away. 20 minutes in, and you knew it was destined for for the bin. If this is what James Gunn does when he's given freedom to do whatever he wants, then thank God Marvel put constraints on him with their movies. This is probably my favorite right now. Alex R. gives 3 out of 5 stars, writing, not my cup of tea. Movie looks good, but is shot well, but leaves a lot to be desired. Don't agree with a lot of the choices made, and don't want to get into detail and spoil it. Gore for gore's sake, not for children. Okay, just straight to the point. Literally straight to the point. Not my type of bag. I didn't enjoy it, but that doesn't mean others might not. I gotta give that guy props for that.
Yeah, an actually objective
take
on the
an
movie.
Actual objective take. Metacritic has a user score of 8.2 from 40 viewers, and received.
So it sounds like it's pretty well received amongst at least you audience, I guess.
I think it has since gone up. So it now has a user score of 7.2, as you can see on the screen, based on 314 ratings. That's pretty good.
Which, yeah, it's good if you're considering 5.
A lot of them are 9 out of 10s and 6 out of 10s here in the article I have, but just going straight on the website here, it's the same deal. You've got a lot of 9s, 10s, 7s, 8s. Actually, very few, mostly 9s and 10s, actually. A lot of just praising the film, a lot of, saying it's hilarious, a good watch, stuff that we've kind of already said.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see. Rotten Tomatoes, did I mention Rotten Tomatoes? Yeah.
I believe so, yeah.
Metacritic, Rotten Tomatoes, IMDb was the other. So IMDb had what was their? Well, they got 1,537 reviews. At least I think just reviews in total, I believe. User reviews. Sorry, user reviews is 1,537. Not seeing like a number thing. I have to go to the actual movie to see that. Movie page, rating. So it's got a 74 Metascore. We got 1.5 thousand user reviews, 1,537. 201 critic reviews, and
Hmm.
See what the Metascore is all about.
And it looks like it's got a decent rating on IMDb.
Based on 49. Okay, so the Metascore is based on 49 critic reviews provided by Metacritic. But some of the user reviews here are all very positive. You got like some 4 out of 10s here, like neither funny nor entertaining. This was such a weird experience for me. Had high expectations, seeing all the praise it was receiving. None of the jokes landed for me. The use of violence and gore seemed forced and out of place. The main villain was comically, no pun intended, stupid. Overall plot was just average.
Get it? Comically stupid?
Yes, I got it.
So like I said, I get the feeling it's just if you're looking for something more straightforward, adultish humor and not too delve deep into the wittiness of it, then this is kind of for you.
Yeah, I'm noticing
I don't
that
think
a lot.
there's much more to say other. I guess
Yeah.
like
I'm
that's
noticing
from
a
I
lot
guess
of
what I understand.
a lot of the lower score reviews on IMDb are mostly like it was overhyped, so therefore it ruined the, like saying it was overhyped,
people
piece of
coming in
garbage
with
and
different
stuff. So so it
rather
was an
than-
expectations thing and not. I mean,
and not
granted,
what
it
the
doesn't
movie
that
was
doesn't mean
actually-
that doesn't mean the plot is super great. It just means that their review specifically is going to be based on how they saw the movie.
Mhm.
But yeah.
Yeah, if you go in expecting the best plot, you're gonna leave disappointed.
I like this one. Everything wrong with the
Potential.
industry. Man, oh man, I don't even know where to begin. All I know is once I saw the cast for this movie, it was either going to be sneakily very good or absolute garbage, and I'm sad to report it's the latter. First off, the movie starts off with no kind of character building and just straight word vomit of exposition versus the stylish ways they introduced us last iteration. And then, first couple of lines in, you can tell what kind of new age nonsense this was going to be. Nowhere near the vein of any top superhero films, or even strictly DC films. Tone right off the bat felt super weird and try-hard, almost as if James Gunn intentionally made a very bad mock version of the Guardians of the Galaxy, a blockbuster movie with Pete Davidson and John Cena couldn't be destined for greatness in my opinion, and I think I was right. Cast also seems like they had a hard time with the lifeless script, Idris Elba especially. Another thing with these new age blockbusters, none of them make us think anymore. Feed us everything like we're dumb. Last movie they made me use my brain in an enjoyable way was the last movie he saw that made him think was Knives Out, and that was a needle in a haystack. I beg to differ. I haven't seen the movie, but I've heard a lot of.
Yeah, I've seen that also, and I didn't think it was
Like it was like a
particularly intelligent.
Agatha Christie knockoff.
Yeah, it wasn't.
And it wasn't even based on her
super
best work.
intelligent. Yeah. Anyway, continue.
Anyway, yeah. All in all, this movie comes off as if a huge graduate film student had access to a Hollywood budget and went with his first crazy idea. With his first crazy, okay, he just makes a typo. So with his first crazy with his idea. Nobody told him this was a flaming pile of mess. I personally enjoyed the first one better. Realistic dialogue, meaningful action, some enjoyable stuff. Okay, so he enjoyed the first one, but he does point out a lot of valid points, I think. In just the movie industry as a whole, which is accurate to why he titled it Everything Wrong with the Movie Industry.
Well, I mean, like we kind of said before with expectations.
Yeah. Well, I think I think he's pointing out a lot of things correct with the movie. Like movies don't make you think anymore at all. Like I can't tell you how many times people say, "Oh, it's a movie where you have to turn off your brain," and every time I hear that, I want to punch someone. I'm not kidding. I genuinely want to punch something because you're saying, first off, I don't know how to do that. Second off, you're saying that you have to turn off your brain to enjoy this. That means it's not good. Straight up. That's just a nicer way of saying it's not good. If you have to turn off your brain to enjoy it, like there is ways of having a fun movie where you don't have to think hard about it and it's still a fun movie. You don't have to, like, for instance, the old Zucker brother films, right? The Zucker and Abrams, like Airplane, Hot Shots Part 2, Top Secret, all these really fun movies that, you don't have to turn off, don't turn off your brain. If you have your brain on, it's a lot more fun.
It's like when your buddy comes to you with an idea and he's like, "Yeah, don't worry, it's not stupid at all." And you're like, "Well, let me think about this for a second." No, don't think.
Don't
just
think
do
about it.
It's generally going to be a stupid idea.
Let me put it this way: if you have to think about it and you're thinking about it, completely destroys it. Like, and I'm not talking about I'm not talking about the weirdos that overanalyze everything to the point where they ruin it for themselves because they're overanalyzing every aspect.
Like if you take 2 minutes.
Yeah, it's kind of just like you think about this one
idea.
plot thing. It's like, wait a minute, how would he have done this if he was, like across the world a second, like that kind of stuff, like, like in the Transformers movies, it's like it's sunset here, but it's sunset when they go to the opposite side of the world too, which makes no sense because it's the opposite side of the world. It would be nighttime there or something, or it's like what. Like inconsistencies and stuff like that, like that sort of just bad writing where it's like you think about it for a second, you go, oh, that's not good.
Yeah.
Versus the overanalyzing it, because you can overanalyze the best film in the world in your relative opinion, the best film in the world. You can overanalyze it to hell and back and ruin it for you. Like, oh, I didn't, turns out there's problems here and there, like, and that's why you don't overanalyze everything because you're going to just ruin your own experience. Sometimes they're movies. You're there to have fun, but at the same time, there is a bad movie where if you're saying you have to turn your brain off just to enjoy it, that's not a good recommendation for a movie. That means it's not worth my time, at least to me.
Yeah,
and I also will note too, it seems like there's a consistent drive in media in general these days of don't think, just do. Don't think. And we're seeing it it seems across the board with this kind of stuff of, hey, look, you aren't supposed to be thinking about this. You're just supposed to react emotionally to it in the way we say, and that's it. That's the whole experience.
You mean the far left don't do as I say, don't do as I do.
Exactly.
Yeah. Like we've had over going on 2 years now of people of authority telling us what to do, but not actually following those rules themselves. From, of course, we're talking about all the COVID-19 lockdowns and restrictions. So, and we've been having that sort of thing with the movie and entertainment industry as a whole. There'd be comics, movies, or TV shows or video games had that wokeness type stuff in the last 5+ years now. And each year getting progressively worse.
Get it? Progressively worse?
Yes, I know. I did that on purpose. Victor Wolfong says, the new one is batshit insane in all the right ways. The age of theater is on its deathbed. Yeah, and I hate that because I do like the movie theater experience. It's just, it's way too expensive for me now.
Well, and like I said, I think now that obviously there's the odd movie, like I said, that you want the theatrical experience. You want to go sit in the theater and you want to see it in sort of the way it was intended to be watched or viewed, right? Because there are certain films that are intended to be watched in the theater. But I feel like with the amount of films that you could just watch at home now, where it's like, okay, I don't need to see this in a theater for it to be the experience that it had intended to be, then why would I go to the theater? Why would I spend that extra money on drinks and food and all
when you have
stuff?
drinks and food at home, you have a nice comfortable couch. There's no one behind you kicking you or making stupid ass comments that ruining your experience.
I said, I understand going to the theater there's definitely movies where you're like, well, I want to go see that in the theater because, well, it's going to be better in the theater. But that's just unfortunately not the truth for every movie, and I think it's honestly it's going to cause a lot of people to stop going to the theater.
The last movie I wanted to see in theaters, but I just didn't have the time to, was Godzilla King of the Monsters, and honestly, I'm glad I didn't, just because I ended up watching it. Literally, it was literally a case of I caught it on cable, literally.
Oh, really?
And it wasn't even a year later, which doesn't speak well for the film. For any who don't know, because this is kind of an outdated reference now, but usually when a film goes to cable less than a year later, it usually is not a good sign. And I watched it, and I'm like, wow, I'm so glad I didn't see this in theaters and spend $15 to $45 to see it with me, my friend, and my brother, because it's horrible. Like, it looked nice. The action was good when there was action, but it was too much focus on the humans. It suffered from Bayformer syndrome. where it focuses on the humans too much and the human melodrama as opposed to the giant monsters and the threat they represent. But I'm an old school Godzilla fan. I love the Toho stuff where Godzilla was an analogy for some real world crisis. You did have the human drama, but it was done well and it was all tied in with the monsters. It wasn't separate. It wasn't like you had the family drama and the monster drama. It was everything was relevant to each other. Everything tied together. You had the monster drama, which, Godzilla versus Destroyer. You have it's a sequel to the original film, the 1954 film, where Dr. Serizawa used the oxygen destroyer to kill Godzilla and himself, and destroying the technology in the process. Someone is trying to recreate his technology, and this was essentially, it was used underwater to kill Godzilla. If this thing's used in the air, it could kill everything on Earth. It's called the oxygen destroyer, and so the whole thing in the film is like one of Dr. Serizawa's remaining relatives. It's like, we can't let this technology be recreated, and in the process of it being recreated, it spawns this new monster called Destroyer, and able to siphon energy off of Godzilla and kill him. Meanwhile, Godzilla himself is about to blow up and literally go nuclear and explode, with the best line ever in all of Godzilla cinema, which is, "Godzilla will explode." Huh? But that film, which was one of the more comedy, campy 90s Godzilla films, was better than Godzilla King of the Monsters and Godzilla vs. Kong. Which is a shame, because it wasn't one of the good ones. I liked it, but it wasn't one of the good ones. But yeah, the age of movie theaters is on its deathbed, unfortunately. You know what the last movie I went to see in theaters was? Spider-Man Homecoming in 2017 of July.
Really?
Yeah.
I think the last movie that I seen in theaters was Infinity War.
Victor Wolfgang says, the bad guy is a giant space starfish, and saying that it's stupid is redundant. Whoa, wait, they have Starro as the bad guy? Is this a starfish that leeches onto either people's chests or faces and then mind controls them?
Yes.
Yeah, they have Starro. That's awesome.
First of all, don't ask questions. Second of all,
Starro's one of the be-all, end-all threats of the Justice League.
so it's a really mean Patrick Star.
Very, very mean.
Really, really.
Basically a starfish that you see in the ocean.
Yo, it's a starfish with an eyeball. It's literally not creative looking at all. It's super silly, but at the same time, it's a super huge threat. In Batman Beyond, they had Superman being controlled by a Starro.
I remember that.
Yeah. When Batman meets the Justice League.
Wow, that was forever ago.
Yeah. That definitely dates me when I can remember, bring that up, no problem, without a second hesitation. Oh yeah, this episode from that show, from going on 20 years now.
Back in the good old days,
when
everything was better, and these
seriously, the 80s and 90s were probably the best comic book related TV shows and movies. Well, not movies, let's be honest, but definitely TV shows, live action and animation, especially animation. In the 90s, you did have stuff like was it Lois and Clark, New Adventures of Superman, which is a rom-com, but it is still pretty good. Very, very Superman. It says, anyone remember Batman Brave and the Bold? Yes, that was a good one. I didn't watch it as much as the others, but it's pretty much a mix of.
Seeing a little bit, but
it's a mix of Golden Age and post-crisis Batman. So it's got the campiness of the '66 show, of the Adam West show, but it's still the post-crisis Batman we all know. Memes of Destruction in the chat saying, hey guys, what's going on? Oh, we're just talking about Suicide. Or I guess we're wrapping it up on Suicide Squad at least.
Yeah. I don't think there's much else to say about it, really.
I don't have anything else either. Well, what do you guys want to talk about next? Because we have either the Godzilla stuff. We can, yeah, let's do the Godzilla stuff because we started diving into that already. So, Godzilla. The writer of Godzilla vs. Kong, Max Bornstein, is teasing that there might be more movies in the MonsterVerse. So the reason the MonsterVerse only had a pre-selected amount of films is because of the licensing deal between Toho and Legendary for the use of Godzilla and all the monsters and creatures of Godzilla's franchise. But he's saying that he wants to do more, but it doesn't really mean anything. So the original thing was from Screen Rant, where he talks about in an interview talking about how he make more of the films. Personally, the only MonsterVerse film I actually enjoyed was the first one, Godzilla from 2014. Mainly because all the family drama and all the human drama stuff relates directly to the monsters, like a classic Toho Godzilla film would, as opposed to every other film afterwards, where there's subplots of human drama side by side with the monster.
And it wasn't even like realistic drama. It's just
it was all inflated melodrama
to make a story. Yeah,
like I saw Kong versus Skull Island. That was the next one, right? Kong Skull Island was really yikes, not good. That's another film that suffers from really, really bad dialogue. In terms of unrealistic dialogue and just dialogue that takes you out of the movie and goes, what the fuck? Because the film takes place in 1973, literally right after the end of the Vietnam conflict, where the U.S. troops are pulling out, and they play way too heavily into that.
Why? It's like, sure, okay, we get that's the setting, but at the same point, why is there?
I understand the want for doing it's set in the past, so this way when they do a movie in the future with Kong, like they do in the,
it kind of builds up.
It's more like, okay, Kong was a pre-established thing. I get so they're making it a pre-established thing through making a movie that's set in the past, and that's fine. It's just they have really bad dialogue. They meet up with a U.S. Air Force pilot from World War II, who's on the island, who's been there for 30 years, and played by John C. Reilly from Guardians of the Galaxy. He played the one of the Nova Corps members. So you guys also probably see him in Step Brothers.
Yeah.
Yeah, but he's in the film. He's funny. He's enjoyable in the film. It's very much like it reminds me of a Marvel film, like a MCU film, in all the bad ways, like the comedy type feel. It's very much that's what they're trying to go for. They're trying to go for that Marvel comedy type jokey joke stuff all the damn time, with serious moments here and there, and really not landing.
Like the lighthearted, yeah.
And I didn't like it. Here you have people he's a World War II pilot, and obviously because there's no shaving equipment, he's got this massive Santa-like beard. That's fine. He's an island, no technology. But he asked them, they're talking about okay, what's the world like right now? And Tom Hiddleston's also in the film. Goes, we're at war with. No, he asks Tom Hiddleston, wait, we're at war with Russia? I thought they were our friends. And he goes, well, it's kind of a cold war. He goes, what? That means you only fight in winter? It's really bad jokes that just don't land. It's it was called the Cold War then, but it was more an arm race than anything. The whole point was essentially just suspicions everywhere, and who can build more nuclear weapons faster.
Yeah, the point was it was a war that hadn't heated up, hence Cold War.
It was a war that didn't fire any shots. Yeah.
Wow.
I mean, no nuclear shots.
That's fair. You mean they didn't tell you about the secret moon base they nuked?
Oh, they did. They just wiped their memory after.
Exactly. Except for a few of us.
It was just a bad film, and then obviously you had Godzilla King of the Monsters in 2019 afterwards, and then you had Godzilla King vs. Kong this past year, or this year, and they were all just horrible. And I can't even say like good ideas with bad execution, because all the ideas were really bad. The action was good when they focused on it. Problem is they'd always like pan to the human dramas or humans running away, and it just gave me Bayformers flashbacks. That's never a good thing.
Yeah, I'm watching a Godzilla for Godzilla, not the guy Godzilla's trying to help.
Right. Or rather, like the guy that Godzilla
in
helping.
reference to the Transformers, at least.
Yeah, like you have like the old Toho, even the bad Toho Godzilla films. Whenever there was a monster action scene, they never cut away from it, ever. The only time they would is when it's relevant, like, okay, humans, the humans are now going to take part in the battle. So the humans, they'll cut to the humans flying in with their, like, souped up X-1 planes or whatever, and flying in to shoot lasers at the monsters. That was the only time they would cut away from the monsters themselves, is when the humans enter the fray, or they have to give a relevant to the fight scene piece of dialogue from a human character. Like, oh no, Godzilla's temperatures are rising or whatever, and then it cuts right back to the monster action. Like, because they knew what the priority of the film was.
That was a monster film.
Exactly. Means of Destruction says, more monsters. It says, hey everyone in the chat. They laid out a movie map like 6 years ago. Yeah, for the Monsterverse, they did. Wasn't it only... I could be wrong, but wasn't Kong vs. Godzilla supposed to be the last one? Or am I...
Oh, are you asking us that?
I don't... asking anyone. Chat, you guys, I don't know.
No idea. I'll be honest, I don't keep up with too much of the King Kong Godzilla stuff.
Why not? What do you got against King Kong, huh?
He reminds me too much of you, Cam.
I have nothing against King Kong. It's all the other people and things they add to the movies.
Yeah, it's always the stupid people that make everything bad.
Yeah.
Says it resurfaced shortly after Godzilla. Oh, the movie map. Meme says, I liked Skull Island. It's a movie about a 100-foot tall gorilla. I give him some leeway. He goes on to say, then again, I thought King of the Monsters was much better than Godzilla 2014. Yeah, no shots at each other. Godzilla vs. Kong was fun, though my beef is how the hell did they get Kong on that ship? How, like, they got him drunk in the OG. Well, in the OG, they also gave him magic powers so that he would then be the same size as Godzilla to fight him. And then he kicked Godzilla's ass because he had magic powers.
Don't ask questions.
The originals was like, typical 60s, high on acid level shit. Victor says, I actually like the new films for my own reasons, but I do understand what you're getting at. I just like that you're making the older, less visually impressive, but better written originals look better. Just from a writing perspective, the newer ones, are making the campy, lower tier films of Toho Godzilla's roster look like masterpieces. That's my opinion. Beams of Destruction says, Godzilla movies have had humans for years, and then again, I identified as Godzilla in preschool. It was mentioned in my progress report. Awesome. I mentioned that. Like, they always...
that there's humans in the movie,
but they have to be relevant to the plot.
The focus is on the monsters, not the main idea.
And the plot is revolving around the monsters, and the human drama is revolving around the monsters. It has to be all connected. Whereas here it feels disconnected. Like, you have the family drama that, could be, not saying this is for better or for worse, could be its own film separate from the Godzilla movie.
Mm-hmm.
Like, yeah,
Something
I like, that's the
real
thing,
monsters are
Godzilla,
humans.
unlike Transformers, Godzilla and just monster movies in general, the monsters don't have human-like personalities, so you can't just have the monster movie, like, I don't agree with a lot of people where, it has to be only action with the monsters. No, you have to have that human drama that essentially makes you aware, okay, what's at stake? Like, why do you care the monsters are fighting? And that's what the human drama is for. That's what Toho did really well in the original stuff. And what I thought the 2014 film did pretty well, too. Like,
but
what's
the
at
main
stake?
thing you're focused on is the monsters fighting, not
Right.
not what the humans.
The human drama
Not
is
what's
there
happening
for...
to the human,
the human characters and drama and how it relates to the plot are why the plot has any stake involved. Whereas...
Mhm.
Like in a Transformers film, you can do a Transformers film without any humans whatsoever because the Transformers are humans in personality and characteristics. Aside from the fact that they're giant alien robots that can transform into vehicles and tools and what have you, they're human in personality. So you don't need to have humans in the film at all. You could have humans in the film to interact with them, but the focus should be on the Transformers themselves. Whereas Godzilla, you can make the humans the focus, whereas, what they did with 2014 and have the monster be just, the threat. Like the original Godzilla film did. And Means Destruction says, not magic, lightning makes Kong stronger because reasons. So magic. Isn't that how Shazam's powers work? Captain Marvel? Shazam? Same guy? Imagine one down in the chat saying, hello everyone, and Meme says, meh, how many Godzilla movies have you fully watched? There is a lot of filler in the franchise, kind of like Dragon Ball Z. Yeah, I've watched, the original, Godzilla Strikes Again, Godzilla the original King of the Monsters, Godzilla vs. Mothra, Rodan, Godzilla vs. Destroyer, all the Godzilla vs. Mechagodzilla movies. All of them, because they're all awesome. It's Godzilla versus a robot Godzilla. What's not to like?
The spleen.
Joke's on you. I don't think either has a spleen.
Exactly.
That just sounds monstrous. You don't know their true biology.
True. Well, you know the biology of Mechagodzilla because he's just a Godzilla skeleton.
Yeah.
He's a Godzilla skeleton in a robot body. I'm not kidding. That's what Mechagodzilla is.
Yeah.
He's depending on continuity. Most continuities, he's usually the original Godzilla's skeleton that's been dug up and then used as the superstructure for the robot. Which is why it eventually goes evil because the ghost of Godzilla takes over the skeleton and therefore taking over Mechagodzilla and then starts destroying the town.
Mm-hmm.
Oh no, there goes Tokyo. Go Godzilla.
Gosh darn it, Godzilla, not again.
And Means Destruction says, ahoy, Megajani. And Megajani says, so how's everyone's Sunday? Loaded question.
Loaded
My Sunday is my Sunday.
Yeah.
Why does it have to be your Sunday? Jeez.
Means Destruction says, I thought they were going to do that
Because
for
I didn't think we would want to hear about yours.
Godzilla vs. Kong because they had the bones from the first movie. I know, I thought that too, but then they ended up doing it was built from King Ghidorah. The Mechagodzilla in the newest movie was built from King Ghidorah's skull. Not even his skeleton, just his skull. Like they had, and it wasn't even like a weird, it's not like the skull still had the brain in it, and the brain was acting as like an operating system for the robot. It was just, it is a robot, it's not like a mech. Like it usually is. And it was literally just, here's a skull that they turned into a pilot seat, like a remote, like an AUV pilot seat. A UAV pilot seat. In the skull, and he had the other skull in the head of the Mechagodzilla robot, and that somehow controlled it.
It was kind of like what?
It was so much.
Person?
Not even. No, not even because that one.
That made sense.
Yeah, there was nothing that made sense. It was just magic.
Yeah.
Oh.
It's almost like if they went magic instead of science, it would have made more sense because it would be like, okay, the magic essence of the King Ghidorah skull, they're linked magically somehow through telepathy or something. So, and they're artifacts now. So you can control one through the other or something. I don't know, some magic bullshit. It's magic. Who cares?
Questions?
But it's like that's not what they did. I mean, that's what they did. But it's like no, science. We used the skull to remote control the robot somehow. It's not even like you have the brain in both skulls still working and just communicating telepathically like King Ghidorah would normally. It's just no, you had just a guy sitting in a skull with a chair in it, and then the robot.
I mean, you don't like just sit in a chair on a skull and like.
No, I like to have a skull and pet it.
Yeah, but the other guy has a skull, so they both have skulls. So
They don't have skulls. So
yeah, as long as you both have skulls, you can do that, right?
Skulls for the skull throne.
Blood for the blood. No. It made no sense. Honestly, it would have been more interesting if they went with like a Mecha Ghidorah look, but because Mecha Ghidorah is awesome. He doesn't have actual. It's not like.
Are you hating on him just because of his looks? I see how it is.
I mean, the
I told you
robot.
he's a monster.
I will give him props. They could have made Mecha Godzilla look a lot worse in the movie, but he didn't exactly look great. Especially compared to the Showa and Millennia versions of Mecha Godzilla. Those look amazing, especially the one with the jetpack that has missile launchers on it.
What the fuck? That sounds stupid.
Well, it's freaking Japanese monster movies. What do you expect?
Gundam.
Then that ties into the next topic. So here, real quick, Memes of Destruction says probably save it for Mecha. I assume Mecha Ghidorah's return. It was the left head too, Victor. It says here it's actually Ghidorah's skull as its brain, which is dumb, but it's an alien. Yeah, but it's an alien that still had a brain. It's not like Mecha or King Ghidorah didn't have a brain. Still a creature with a brain. He just had 3 brains because he had 3 heads.
It's not very nice to say he didn't have a brain,
It makes Pacific Rim makes more sense than any of these films. That's just
Yeah, that's kind of why I asked whether or not it was like a.
if you want a good, I'm gonna say this: if you want a good monster versus robot film right now, just go watch the original Pacific Rim because it still holds up.
You want something with like kaiju-esque action,
and it's not. Yeah, it is not a like turn your brain off dumb movie. There actually are like if you look further into the film, there actually are some hidden things that are really worth watching. For starters, Gypsy Danger's walking motion is the same it's based on John Wayne.
John Cena!
I was about to say, actually.
Sorry.
But yeah, it's based on John Wayne's movement. So the way he walks is similar to John Wayne old, 50s and 60s westerns that he did.
You mean the swagger?
Yeah, it's got the swagger walk. Means of Destruction says, any significantly advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic. Arthur C. Clarke. Yes, but they literally don't they try to explain it and it doesn't make any sense based on modern science.
I don't remember them.
Yeah,
you literally have ships that are glowing fucking rainbows and it's they're these gravity immune ships or something like that.
Yeah.
They can't be crushed by gravity or something. That's not how gravity works. Star Trek does a really good level.
I will say gravity is one thing we can consider magic because I'm pretty sure nobody knows how it works.
Right. Gravity has effect on time.
We know how it doesn't work.
Right. And that's the thing is
wait.
Gravity
Guys,
can affect the one thing that nothing else can, and that is
I know how it works. It's because the missile knows where it is. It knows where it is.
The missile knows where it is at all times.
just imagine. So one of the things I play is Space Engineers. I've had friends who go and they make missiles based out of blocks. So it's all block building. They put a speaker on the fucking missile that plays that as a fucking sound file. You just hear The missile knows where it is.
Right, coming right at you.
All
right, so the quote here from the writer, by the way, is, "I've heard some exciting things that are happening that I can't divulge. They have a great handle on things there, and I certainly have thoughts, and I'm always excited when I get involved in them. I think it's in good hands, and with the success of Godzilla vs. Kong, financially anyways, there will be some new interesting installments coming. Without it being able to say any of that officially, you can look at the fact that the film performed and people really responded to it, I'll say." I think it was really wonderful timing for people to have that towards the end of that surge in the pandemic. People really felt eager to see something that was fun and joyful in the cinema, and it was really exciting to have our movie be that movie.
It might have been true for some people.
I guess, yeah, it really was just like it was literally a Hollywood cookie cutter film. We talked about it in our Godzilla vs. Kong review.
Yeah.
Like, the villain is literally... It's funny because in the chat, Victor Wolfong mentions Pacific Rim: The Black, which is the 3D anime on Netflix, which is actually decent. Like, if you're a Pacific Rim fan, I do recommend it. But the villain, one of the villains in the show, looks identical to the villain in Godzilla vs. Kong. He's not Australian like he is in the show, but the villain, they look identical. Old white guy with a beard.
Are you saying all white guys look the same? Jeez.
I will agree with him. That does seem to be a pretty common.
It's a common villain trend. Like, why are all villains old white guys with silver long hair and a silver beard? Like, I sent you the picture, right? I showed you both the movie villain and the show villain, and you saw how similar they looked. Honestly, in the show, it makes sense. That's actually how many, that's an Australian look. But the movie villain, it's just typical Hollywood cookie cutter villain there. One says, "At least I'm deliberately going for magic in my story to simplify things, but I'm also trying to establish at least some limitations so it isn't a crutch." For anyone who doesn't know, Magic One's writing his own IP stuff there, so check him out.
Yeah, and see, I don't think magic is a bad thing, but when it's like, oh, we need something to happen, and we don't want to come up with a decent way to explain it.
It's used often. The reason why a lot of people think on it negatively is because of how it's used in writing, and that is as a get out of jail free card for when you're creatively in a corner and you can't write yourself out of it. Or at least that writer is incapable of writing himself out of it.
Well, the other side is that it's irritating when you're trying to watch a movie that's trying to be realistic and scientific,
Right.
and then they just throw this thing out there. Oh well, yeah, this happens.
Yeah.
It's
by the
fine if
way,
it's in a fantasy setting because fantasy is just whatever you want it to be.
right. And by the way, Godzilla in old school Toho Godzilla, there is magic. Like Mothra is magic.
Yeah.
But usually Godzilla himself and most of his enemies are always science-based. I mean, Godzilla himself is an analogy for nuclear technology and nuclear weapons.
Honestly, if they hadn't used the whole charging with nuclear energy thing with Godzilla, then it probably wouldn't have bothered me at all. They tried to explain how it worked with Godzilla, and then the rest of the stuff was just, well, this is what we're doing now.
That's why I liked the Whatchamface film, the 2014 one, because they kept it simple. They did explain things, but they kept it simple so that it's not over-explaining to the point where it's like, wait a minute, that doesn't make sense. You can't have realistically that doesn't make sense. Where you're just keeping it simple, where it's like, okay, these beings, these giant monsters, are capable of energy absorption and redirection. Okay, that's pretty much in layman terms what they said in the film. In the 2014 film, they're capable of absorbing radiation and then weaponizing it in the form of an attack, of some kind of energy base. In Godzilla's case, it's his atomic breath. In the Muto's case, it was the EMP attack.
It really felt odd because it didn't even fit in their own world correctly.
What, in Godzilla vs. Kong?
Like the different bits of technology that they had.
Yeah. Also the fact that like they used this spaceship as a defibrillator or something. Like what the?
That's not how you
There's
use
so
your
many
spaceship?
things weird in this film. It makes no sense. It's a shame too because you had like the landscape of what was it, Hollow
Yeah,
Earth, right?
It looked really good.
It looked great. Like there were some points where it looked like you clearly could tell it wasn't, but it was very reminiscent of like the painted vistas of old cinema.
Yeah.
And I loved it. It was very colorful. It was nice, and it looked great. Like the environment looked great, and the monsters themselves looked great. Everything else was visual garbage.
I laughed when they had the fight on the carrier and the other ship.
Oh my god! Yeah, the weight of those monsters was sunken.
Yeah.
Also, the fact that they completely descaled Godzilla for that film. Because I rewatched 2014 Godzilla both prior to Godzilla vs. Kong and afterwards to make sure I wasn't just tripping on seeing Godzilla's size difference. No, Godzilla is without a doubt like at least 3 times the size of an aircraft carrier in the first film. In the most recent one, he's standing on one.
Don't ask questions.
I think I've said this before, but the turning point for me in that movie where I stopped taking it seriously and just watched it
I
as
stopped
a
taking it
whatever
seriously during
movie.
that fight.
Well, that was like, okay, this is a little unrealistic, but when they picked Kong up, they were flying him in this huge net that was attached to like 40 Chinook helicopters. I was like, okay, yeah.
Oh my god, the strain on those choppers, I think would be irreparable.
Yeah,
you wouldn't be able to repair those choppers to be in working order again. You'd have to completely dismantle them. The stress on their
you would
on
scrap,
their
you would
rotors.
scrap them for parts.
Right. Oh, now we got the Nerdporial Lifeform in the chat saying sup to everyone. He says, I have not watched the Suicide Squad yet. Don't worry, neither have I, but Data has. So we just did a little review on it.
Yeah.
Hey
Yeah,
guys, I gotta go here. Sorry about that.
Oh, that's all right.
I'll see you guys tomorrow then.
Yeah.
Don't die. He's dead.
All right.
Yeah.
Peace.
All right. For anyone curious, tomorrow we're going to be playing some Star Citizen instead of the usual podcast type format. No, let's just move on to the next topic here. Since we kind of just talked about, they're going to be doing a new movie sometime, maybe.
Theoretically.
So, honestly, I am curious about the movie because again, I'm a diehard Godzilla fan. I want a good Godzilla movie. You know, I enjoyed 2014. I think 2019 had redeemable moments. Like if you edited out all the family drama nonsense, you would have at least a decent film, as opposed to a crap film. The music in that film was great. I loved the rendition of the Godzilla theme they did in that film, though, in King of the Monsters. It was a very nice orchestral version of it. What I did not like was the version of Blue Oyster Cult's Godzilla at the end credits. That was just horrible. I've never winced so hard in a while. Imagine One says, don't have HBO Max to even watch The Suicide Squad. I do, but that's because I'm leeching. So, moving on though. Last topic, it is the internet stupidity. So, Hong's
No.
Yes.
No.
Yes. So, as many have probably guessed from the thumbnail of this episode, people are losing their minds. You know, I need to have a clip of Joker from The Dark Knight, where like people lose their minds. Like this is equivalent to that. You know, it's like they're losing their minds because some guy called a Gundam Unicorn model, like a 1-to-1 Gundam Unicorn mech statue in Japan, a transformer. It's here on screen. Just when you thought speed climbing was frightening enough, you now need to impress a transformer too at Tokyo 2020. For anyone who don't know, in Tokyo they have a giant 1-to-1 scale Gundam Unicorn mobile suit statue, and it is fucking awesome. But yeah, they called it a transformer, and then all the internet nerds started blowing up and going, "Oh yeah, they call it a Gundam, it's not a Transformer." Blah, blah, blah. Like, honestly, I'm laughing at this. This is hilarious because I'll be honest. As a kid, I thought the Gundams were Transformers too. and of course, because even as a kid, I was collecting the Gundam models, not knowing they weren't. Like, I thought they were Japanese Transformers. That's really what I thought they were. And to an extent, there are transforming Gundams, so I'm not wrong on that. But
the guy clearly messed up. He should have called them Megazords.
Voltron. You should have called it Voltron.
No god.
What other giant mechs? Oh, Mechagodzilla. Should call it Mechagodzilla. No, but just. And now you have like people making fun, like, "Yo, look at the Transformer." Obviously, not a Transformer, but honestly, it's funny. Like, who cares? So that person doesn't know the difference. It just shows that they're not a fan of Gundam. Like, is that an insult to anyone? No.
Oh, that's one thing though that I really dislike is it's like if you're the director, you're the writer, and it's like, hey, you're working on such and such project. Okay, hey, wouldn't expect every single person who gets every single project to be a diehard fan of it or to know it's like, oh, and the 1952 version of it, this had, none of that kind of shit. But at the very least, again, assuming you want to do it well, and it seems like for a lot of these creative directors, writers, etc., they don't have any desire to do it well. Grab someone who does have some knowledge.
Oh, this actually reminds me, by the way. So on a similar topic, just real quick, they are working on a Netflix live-action Gundam. I don't remember if it's a movie or a series.
Oh gosh, it's probably going to be horrible.
Oh, it totally is, because you know who's directing it? Let me get the article here real quick. But I'll give you 3 guesses as to who's directing it, and he's directed a live-action movie we just talked about.
I have no idea.
The director,
directors in general.
It's the director of Kong Skull Island.
Of course.
He's doing a live-action Netflix movie for Gundam. Just for anyone who doesn't know what Gundam is, Gundam is a Japanese anime. It's essentially, it's almost an analogy for, pretty much you have space. Okay, pretty much bottom line, you have Earth and Earth's colonies in space. The colonies are fighting for independence from Earth, the Earth being the Federation, and the space colonies being the Zeon. And they use giant mech suits called mobile suits to fight each other. Awesome. Because literally in this universe, Gundams are pretty much tanks. Like, you have Gundam pilots and stuff, or the Zeon, they have their Zaku pilots, their version of the Gundam. And and I got into it through the model kit as a kid. I loved building the models. I have so many models. I got the really crappy Gundam
against Earth already.
No, I have the crappy Gundam. It's funny. Gundam Age, the series Gundam Age, is a good series with really shitty models. And Gundam Seed has good models, but it's a really crappy series.
Sounds alright.
So, like, good designs, but really horrible writing in the show. Whereas Gundam Age has good, decent designs, but the models themselves are just poor quality. No one knows why. I got, Victory Gundam, Victory 2 Gundam, Classic Gundam. I got a few Gundam Seed, Gundam Wing models. I've got my personal favorite, which is the Gundam 00 Exia model. Like, there's some really good stuff. And then some of them do transform.
What?
But keep in mind, this came out before Gundam came out well before Transformers. It actually helped inspire Transformers. Yeah, they're not sentient robots. They're just mech suits piloted by. Essentially, they're just walking tanks.
Say it ain't so.
Say it ain't so. But yeah. The means of destruction says it's a Gundam. Victor says, I find this hilarious as well, as you should. Remember Star Saber? He's basically a Gundam. Yep. I really want a Power Rangers Transformers crossover. That would be interesting, wouldn't it? Having the Megazord be sentient Transformer.
That would be interesting.
Meiji1 says, I want a Power Rangers Spider-Man crossover because technically Spider-Man inspired Power Rangers.
Damn, that would be
just silly.
so campily hilarious.
If they go full camp, that would be hilarious.
It would.
Like, we're talking like if they go 1967 animation Spider-Man on it, where nothing,
Which
like
I
everything's
think
out the window, doesn't matter. Victor Wolfung says, why not both Transformers, Power Rangers, Spider-Man? Well, they did do a Transformers Spider-Man crossover in the 80s, because Transformers, for at least the Transformers lore and story as we know and love it, was a Marvel comic before it was anything else. Bob Budiansky and the G1 Marvel comics of Transformers, he had Spider-Man literally tie up Megatron on cover art. I actually have that issue. Got Spider-Man fighting giant robots. Nothing new. I mean, he fights giant robots that are shaped as spiders trying to kill him all the damn time. Victor says, I also want a Gundam Transformers crossover. Imagine how cool some of the designs would be. You don't want to see my... I've made some Gundam Transformers crossover design. It's totally fun. Because the designs work, like their art styles are very similar. Love it. But yeah, so you have this guy who got to Kong Skull Island. He's doing a Gundam something. We don't know if it's based on a series or if it's going to be a new entry. But it's he's making a Gundam movie for Netflix, and I do not have any. The original story here, it's Gundam. People are upset that someone called a Gundam a Transformer. It's like, yeah, who gives a shit? This is funny though, and it was from the BBC. That's why people are complaining. And I think some of these comments actually summed it up perfectly. How unique! Instead of the usual BBC lie, an apparently innocent and rather charming mistake. And I definitely I definitely agree with this guy. The Transformers would win against Gundams because Transformers have beam weapons just as their normal weapons, whereas in Gundam's continuity, beam weapons are like the be-all end-all weapon. Well, in certain Gundam shows, and also the fact that they're sentient, whereas the Gundam mech. Also, I'm totally biased because
How dare you?
Although, depending on Transformers continuities, the Gundams are like we're going live action Gundam. Nerdporial Lifeform says Gundam is great. I like UC Gundam, Universal Continuity Gundam. Yeah. Now they're just going bizarre in chat. Victor says, I also want a Gundam Transformers cross. Oh, I already read that. Meggy1 says Godzilla versus King Kong versus Transformers versus Power Rangers.
This is the way.
Nerdporial Lifeform says Zeta and Victory are great. Yeah, I haven't watched Zeta yet, but Victory is good. Good model set. Very solid. Quality. Yeah, that's pretty much the story here. Just a bunch of morons blowing up about other morons. Cam, I need you to do your best Sergeant Dornan in the chat. Okay. Victor says, I think I want to see as well is a Thunderbirds Transformers crossover. Imagine one asks, how would Godzilla fare against any on the weapon kaiju from Final Fantasy VII. None of us are really Final Fantasy guys. I've never played. I think I've played one, but it was in passing at a friend. Not really playing, really. Victor says that sounds explosive. So that's pretty much it. Do we have anything else?
Nope. Negative.
Oh no, we do have one last thing regarding
Lies.
close actually. So Warner Brothers kind of omitted some names from the theatrical release of the credit. So a lot of 2D animators were not credited in the theatrical release of Space Cram 2.
Not surprised.
So, and they later tweeted out all the names as like we sorry here, we're gonna tweet your names out now. But it's not like it's out of your power to just edit the film, put them in the HBO and DVD release. Because if they don't do that, then that's if they have the chance to do that right now still, so they can still add their names into the credits before, especially on the streaming service version, just digitally add that in. DVD, it's going to be a bit more difficult, but I think they definitely should, because as I state here on my Flickr page, for any that have ever visited my Flickr, if you're ever going to use someone else's art, you have to do the 3 A's: appreciation, acknowledgement, and acknowledgement. Like the 5 D's of dodge: dodge, duck, dive, and dodge.
Let's go with that.
You gotta give credit where credit's due. They're not doing that. Especially since I haven't seen the film, but Looney Tunes, it's kind of guaranteed to have a lot of 2D. Especially if we're going by the stills here.
I'd be interested if it was actually 2D though, because even today, most 2D cartoons are still done in
like in a 3D type setting.
Yeah.
I miss 2D. As anyone says, in other words, Ultimate Weapon, Diamond Weapon, Ruby Weapon, and question mark? Third Pro response saying both. Third Pro life form says Universal Century. Did I say continuity? I did say continuity. I meant century.
How could you?
Thank you, Nordportal, for correcting me. Victor says, I came up with a weird premise for a Transformers continuity, where the Autobots and Decepticons were colonists on the Ark, but due to mysterious circumstances, the Ark crashed on Earth. Into Earth? Or like on the Earth? Now I'm just imagining like a giant spaceship just kind of spearing the Earth. Like kind of like the I Love Mom tattoo, where there's like an arrow in the heart. I'm imagining that with a spaceship to the Earth.
Yeah, what could possibly go wrong?
Oh, I love it. Just silly and ridiculous. Is peanut butter? Could you leave a link to your Flickr so I can follow it? Yes, I can. There you are. Now in the chat for all to see. Oh, it's Flickr, my mistake. Yes, I don't... Oh, Flick Art. I thought you made a typo there when you said Flick Art. Yeah. Wait, there's something called Fic Art?
Don't do it.
Don't ask questions.
I don't know what it is, so I'm not going to do it.
But you will.
Yeah, so that definitely sucks, not getting credited for your... I would definitely livid about it.
I would be more concerned about not getting paid than not getting credit.
That too. But then again, getting credited would eventually lead to getting future jobs.
Well, I'm sure it would still get put on their job resume or whatever, but I can understand why people would get a little bit upset if everyone else in the project was in the credits, but they weren't for whatever reason.
I do have one more topic if you guys want to talk about it. I mean, it's somewhat related. Netflix is pretty much the first major studio to implement mandatory on-set COVID-19 vaccination requirements.
Yeah.
And it's like tying in with the actors. And Disney's now mandating it for future and past employees. If you want to get employed there, you have to get the vaccine, be fully vaccinated. If you're working there now, you have to get vaccinated. That's pretty much it. There's nothing more to it.
Yeah, I think it's a mistake. People should.
I don't like it, but I mean, in terms of like a news story, like I can speak my opinion all day, but in terms of a news story, that's it. They're mandating the vaccine. No different than in New York City, they're mandating vaccine. Like you have to essentially bring your little vaccine passport when you go to a bar, restaurant, pretty much anywhere, movie theater, like, Broadway theater.
I'm sorry, the government should not be getting involved to that level of your life.
Yeah, that's my problem.
Like,
at least with this, it's corporations, which they still have to obey the law, even they're a private entity, but they still have to work within the law. That's what we're seeing. That's what we're seeing with the Activision Blizzard suit. Is because they violated state and federal laws, they're now getting sued by the state.
And I mean, to be fair, the Supreme Court has in the past mandated vaccinations in the U.S.
Yes, but for smallpox and polio.
Yes, but I'm just saying
isn't even the chicken
categorically,
pox.
it's not unprecedented. So, admittedly, there is that. On the other hand, though, I personally don't like it, and especially too when it seems like it's a lot of the same crowd who go, "My body, my choice" for abortion, and it's like, even if you don't see a fetus as a baby, it is absolutely factual that if assuming mother and child are healthy, there's no like disease or anything like that, the fetus will grow into a human being. It's not going to grow up into a cow or anything else.
Let me word it this way, Cam. How many people have you ever heard say, "Oh, when is your clump of cells due?"
Well, exactly.
No, it's when is your child due?
Even if for those people, because for me personally, I do see it as, look, once you're pregnant, that's a baby that's growing there. It's not a cow. It's not your science project. It's not some mold. It is going to be a human being here. And that being said, and I have no problem with things like abortions for rape or anything of that kind of line. It's just my problem is abortions being used as a means of contraceptive when you have so many other means of contraceptives available. Anyway, but moving past that point.
You sure? Because look at the article I brought up.
When you get an abortion, that is ending that potential human. Even if you don't see it as a human right now, whatever, it would have potentially been a human. That is definitive harm. That's okay, but we can't have my body, my choice when there is potential, not proven, but potential harm to others because you didn't get the vaccine. It just doesn't seem like it's... it seems like it's very picky choosy with morals and ethics there, and not a my body, my choice across the board.
And on top of that, the argument falls apart if you consider that everyone who chooses not to get the vaccine isn't hurting anyone who's already chosen to get the vaccine.
My problem is
now they're saying, oh, even if you get the vaccine, you can still get COVID.
Right, which then means what's the point of the vaccine?
The story is changing all the time.
Anyway.
Also, the fact that the vaccine isn't. I'm not saying like, oh, it's not a vaccine, you shouldn't get it, blah blah blah. Like, if you feel the need, you want to get it, that's fine. That's your personal choice. And that's the thing. It's a personal choice.
I've already been vaccinated.
What was that?
But it should be a choice, and the fact that you have so many organizations trying to force you to make this choice, whether that be by politicians trying to go and enforce mandates on it, companies enforcing mandates on it, celebrities saying, you have to do this, otherwise you're dumb.
It's also like you're... I get it. Like
It should-
people
it
make
should
the
be a
argument that
personal choice.
yeah, people make the argument. Well, no, if your personal freedom is infringing on the public health and all that, then yeah, they're allowed to mandate the vaccines. But here's the thing: it's not. First off, the COVID-19 virus doesn't affect children like at all the same way it does adults, and the infection rate of children is somewhere between like 300 and 500, like somewhere between there. In just 300 and 500, not like million or whatever, 1,000. 300 and 500 children, somewhere between those numbers, in the U.S. alone have been infected and have passed away from
Also,
COVID-19
too, it's
infection.
in regard to potential harm. Everything could be potential. You
The
you
flu
getting in
or
your
the
car
common
and
cold can
driving
kill
on the
you too.
freeway could potentially harm someone. And it's like if that's going to be the bar for when the government can start mandating stuff, holy shit! The politicians have already had a field day. They were going, oh, we're going to have lockdowns again. Oh, this is going to be fucking great. Well, at the same time, and again, if it was such a big thing, my biggest issue is that if it was as big of a deal as the politicians and the media keep telling us it is, how come the very same politicians and media keep breaking their own rules? They'll
Not
be
to
telling
mention
us,
the fact
hey,
that
you can't be doing this.
not to
And
mention
then
the
later
fact
on
that the
same day,
whole
they're doing that exact thing. Well, it's okay when I do it. It's when you guys do it. You can't be doing that, but I can because I'm special.
so here's
So
the
what the
thing.
fuck? If there was consistency there, that'd be one thing. But their very actions belie any kind of concern they seem to have. So either at the very least, they give no fucks and want to hurt everyone by not following the rules, or the situation is not as serious as the picture they paint them out to be. Not to downplay that it is harmful. It has killed people, but it seems that the actions that they take versus the words that the politicians say don't exactly line up with the amount of concern they would want people to think they have for the situation.
Yeah, and that's the thing is, this people, the media especially, have like promoted this virus as though it's like like the plague. It's like smallpox all over again. When it's hardly like chicken. Like chicken pox is probably more deadly. I mean, the best comparison to the COVID-19 virus would be the flu. The only difference here is that it's more contagious, and instead of targeting kids, it targets adults, whereas the flu usually targets kids more. Not saying that adults can't get it, just as not.
It's evolving. We're getting different strains,
right?
But it's like that's the
but
same
that's an RNA virus for you. RNA viruses will mutate over time, all the time. That's why you get the flu and the common cold like every year, because they're RNA viruses that are constantly mutating, and therefore, if you had it one year, there's a new strain now. You can get it again.
They're going to probably.
But it means that unlike the first time you got it, your body, your immune system, now has a frame of reference of what it's going up against. So it may not be as bad, depending on the strain. But that's the thing is, like I saw a commercial. I was watching, or I should say, rewatching some Odd Couple on Hulu, and they had because Hulu has commercials. They had a commercial for the vaccine, and they're saying, and they literally, I'm quoting them here, saying that you're natural. If you had COVID and feel that you don't, you'll have antibodies, but your researchers say that your antibodies will not be as good as the ones from the vaccine. It was a vaccine commercial to promote the vaccine, and I was like, "That? How do you know? You're not a doctor. Like the guy telling me this isn't a doctor. It's some PR guy trying to promote the vaccine."
And why do they want to promote the vaccine?
Because they make money.
Exactly.
Yep.
Not public health. It's all about the moolah. And that's my problem. Is like this thing has, at least everyone I know that's had it, like everyone in my family specifically, I've seen them sicker with the flu. Like my mother had it. She's fine. My 84-year-old grandfather had it, and all he had was a cough. And he is recovering from a stroke right now. So, and at the time he had it, and he just had a cough. That was it. He was fine otherwise. My grandmother, his wife, also 84 at the time, and she had it. didn't even have a cough. She just had a lack of taste buds, lack of taste.
And
So-
I don't know. This isn't to downplay that it has harmed people or killed
No,
people.
it's just that that's the
what
common
we're
symptoms.
being told and what we're actually seeing are two different things.
Right. Like my neighbor who has type 2 diabetes, he had it and had it a bit more severe, but he's fine. Like he essentially said it was like a worse flu, but it was still like a flu. And that's a common thing I've noticed, is that it seems to be worse for people that have type 1 or type 2 diabetes or obese. Which does lend some credit to some conspiracy theories that it be weaponized by China to target Americans. But it's, it's not as, it's not like smallpox or even the chickenpox. It's the flu, just a bit more contagious and targeting adults as opposed to children. Because children, if they even do get it, are usually asymptomatic. And that's just if they get it. Like, children just don't seem to be catching it as often, if at all. Whereas the flu usually targets kids more than adults. And that doesn't mean that adults can't get the flu or kids can't get COVID. It just means that looking at the actual numbers that we know so far, kids make up barely, not even 1% of COVID-19 cases in the U.S. The people that are most at risk with COVID are the elderly. The elderly and those with diabetes or obese. That's really the most at risk of COVID-19. So it's like the whole vaccine thing, like to push it on everyone. No, especially when it's like I don't agree that the flu shot has to be pushed on everyone, or even HPV. Because for anyone who doesn't know, the HPV vaccine is given to kids, which HPV is a STD. It's a sexually transmitted disease. It doesn't need to be pushed to kids. You can easily fix that problem with better sex ed and protection. Thanks, McJetty. Follow me on Flickr. But you don't need to, like, the whole, public health concerns. The public health concerns are when you lock things down and don't let people build immunity to this.
There's more.
They make it out like you're going to be able to nip this thing in the bud and actually get rid of COVID-19 permanently. Like, the virus is now, swept off the face of the earth. That's not realistic. It's not possible.
Yeah, it's probably never going to happen.
It's never going to happen. No, now we just have an extra version of the flu out. That's just going to be the reality of our new world. We have the flu, the common cold, and now COVID.
Oh, and also too, therein is the part of the issue with, again, the politicians kind of pushing this kind of shit to where it almost seems like they're either ignorant of the situation or they know and are just trying to use it to grab as much power as they can, fuck around with shit as much as they can until they go, oh yeah, it's here to stay. Our bad, we didn't tell you before.
Yeah, and that's another thing too, is they don't mention the risks. The only thing I see being promoted about the vaccine is how many people have gotten it. They don't talk about the risks involved, because here's the thing. This vaccine, at least in the US, has only been out for going on 7 months now, or going on 8 months. Which means, and this is my personal fear of it, that if, say, some a chick gets it, a 16-year-old, 20-year-old, 30-year-old, whatever, they get the vaccine. Then a few months later, they get pregnant. And then obviously 9 months later, they have the baby. What's to say that there's going to be no complications? Because it hasn't been long enough for that full cycle to occur. Now, yes, you can say that it's been long enough for someone to have gotten it, a pregnant woman to have gotten it and have a kid, or something like that, but you haven't had enough time. The vaccine hasn't existed long enough for a person to get it, then get pregnant, and then have a kid, and see what happens. We don't know. Also, the fact that the worry is this thing isn't a vaccine. Calling it a vaccine is just incorrect, because of the way it actually works. It uses mRNA technology, which, for those who don't know in layman's terms, it pretty much just uses mRNA technology to go into your cell, nucleus of your cell and rewrite the genetic code in your nucleus to do something else. In the case of the COVID gene therapy treatment, as it should be called, it rewrites your cells to produce the spike protein, which is on the COVID-19 virus. It's how it latches to your cells. And this way your cells are producing the spike protein so that your antibodies can fight it and learn to better protect you from it. That's the idea, except there are a lot of cases where the spike protein doesn't stop being produced by your cells because mRNA technology is still in the prototype stage. The original use for it was for curing cancer, or at least that was the original consultant type PR speak for it. So the whole point was go into your cells to rewrite the cells to stop producing dead cells that cause tumors. So, but here you're using it to produce this spike protein that, in your body, relatively harmless, but once it gets into your blood, that's when you can get all sorts of fucked up. My cousin actually got the vaccine, and then shortly after, we're talking hours after, had myocarditis. For those who don't know, myocarditis is inflammation of the heart muscle, which can result in, obviously, the heart ceasing to function and death. Like an arrhythmia, unbalanced rapid heart rhythms, so the heart beating abnormally, and blood clots. In other words, this thing can do anything from myocarditis can do anything from straight up heart attack to a minor paralysis, stroke, or death. It's a pretty serious thing. It's a miracle that he's alive and fine, like no issues. But the problem was that the doctors weren't going to report the issue. Like, they weren't going to report that the vaccine caused it until my cousin's mother got involved and got on the doctor's ass. Because you don't fuck with a mother's kid.
One of the reasons that the vaccine is having so many side effects is that
it's untested.
In a general vaccine, the injection stays in your shoulder or wherever it is they put it, generally in your shoulder. It stays on one spot and your body can take care of it. The vaccines that were created for COVID were engineered to do that, but they don't. And those spike proteins detach from the cell and get circulated throughout your entire body. And that's the problem.
And another thing is, there is a case, there actually are 3 cases I've read, where a woman who already had a baby and then got the vaccine, and the baby's an infant, so when they're breastfeeding, spike protein got into the baby and really fucked up the baby.
My real problem with the vaccine is that there are possibly severe side effects, and nobody wants to tell
no one
you
even
about
mentions
them.
They
want to push the vaccine. They say, "Oh, it's safe. Don't worry about it. Just take it. Just take it."
I know we're gonna sound.
It's like we need to be safe about how we are treating the disease as much as we need to get serious about that as we are about the disease itself.
It's like, instead of giving you the information and letting you weigh the options, they just want to make.
They want to take the options from you and force it on you.
Right.
Exactly.
And here's the problem. I know we're sounding like conspiracy theorists here, but we're not, and this is why. Like, because how long is the vaccine? It's been out for 7, again, going on 8 months at longest. At least here in the States. I know in other countries it's been out longer, depending on some things, but in the United States, the vaccine's been out for about 7 to 8 months. Vaccines, you know how long vaccines are usually tested before they get to the civilian populace and become commercial products?
A couple years.
10 to 11
5
years. 10 to 11 years. You want to know why? Because of some of the things I already mentioned, where like you have to test on pregnant women and this and that. It's like, because we don't know what the long-term effects of these are. And some of the short-term effects that we already know about are fucking frightening. My cousin almost died from the vaccine. It's crazy. You know, and if you're if you have a an immunocompromised system, like if you have autoimmune encephalitis type disorder, which is a serious thing that doesn't get talked about enough, but that's a different topic. And you get this vaccine, you're fucked. That thing will kill you.
Really, what needs to happen is all the information needs to be made available for what we actually know about the virus.
Right.
So people who are at the most risk of dying from COVID can weigh the potential side effects of getting the vaccine to say, well, which one is going to be worse for me, getting COVID or taking the vaccine? And then
Exactly.
let them
It
make
needs
an
to be their
educated
choice.
choice about it.
And that's really what we're seeing is a taking away of choice and being told, oh, if you want choice, you're bad. And it's
So,
like,
for anyone who's
okay.
curious, I just put a Dropbox link in the chat for a really good article on research that I asked from a doctor. Because for anyone who doesn't know, I do some research sometimes. I actually asked the doctor for this. So he gave me a bunch of research regarding the vaccine and what they say versus the truth. So it's a little PDF file if you want to read it. But the problem is, that same commercial where it's talking about like, oh no, the vaccine is better than your natural immune system because your immune system will fade away or something like that, whereas the vaccine wouldn't, which worries me because the whole point of the vaccine is that it'll eventually fade away so that your immune system can
reacting
have
to the vaccine that makes this anyway.
Typically, a vaccine is your immune system is essentially going through a simulation of what the virus in a localized area of your body, being your shoulder, so that they know what they're in for when they do encounter the virus, and then they can fight it off easily.
And whatever you're injected with is generally
it has a half-life.
So it
it
cannot
dies.
reproduce. Yeah, it can't reproduce. So your body finds this, oh, this is an invader, it figures out how to kill it, and then if you catch it for real, then your body's like, oh yeah, we know what this is, and you can take care of it.
Well said, Victor. Freedom is the right of all sentient beings. I've always taken that to heart. Yeah. And he says that he was skeptic of the vaccine at first too, but I got it because of the mandates. And that's the thing is I couldn't get it, even with mandates. Physically cannot get it. I know my father doesn't want to get it. My like really anyone in my family doesn't want it. Even my grandparents who had who had COVID don't want it. And they're not idiots. Like they know medical they know what an RNA virus is and how they can get it again. But they're like, what they had, they didn't even know they had it at the time. They just thought, one of them thought they had a cough, and the other one was kind of just confused why they had no sense of taste for a week. And that was it. They were better, and we didn't think anything less of it, or more of it. Victor says, but there is peace through tyranny. Yes, but there's no freedom.
There's peace for some through tyranny.
Right. And there's oppression for everyone else, and oppression for everyone else.
Yeah.
Yeah, details.
But that's the problem here. Is like the vaccine, the mandates for it. Like I'm not even a fan of corporations mandating it, because again, like I hear people say, well, they're corporate entity, private entities, they can do what they want. Except the whole reason Activision Blizzard's being sued is because they were doing what they wanted, and to the point where even their terms of service contracts for employees to sign upon being employed were illegal and featured illegal documentation stuff that the corporation is not allowed to do to them.
This is a little bit different.
It's a little bit different, but it's along the same vein of you're forcing your employees to do something. It almost makes employment with certain companies a hostage situation.
Yeah, it does. Like if you want to continue to make a paycheck, then you have to do what we tell you to do.
I'm not saying you should, but you could just get a forgery of vaccine.
Yeah.
Because I'm going to say this: your mental and physical health is more important than anything. If you're getting forced against your will to get a vaccine, and I know the Army's also mandating vaccines for active service.
Yep.
Personnel.
Then again, though, I will say for the military, they'll just go and be like,
but
hey,
they
guys,
do that for everything. Yeah, it's not.
Yeah,
like they mandate the flu vaccine too. Which
one of my buddies who had been deployed, he said that when they got back from deployment, Guy pulls him into a room and was like, "Hey, by the way, just so you guys know, because of some of the experimental shit we've injected you with, you can't go and give blood for about a year." "Okay, thanks, bye." And the guy just ran out of the room because, hey, you've now got a whole bunch of pissed off soldiers going, "Hey, what the fuck did you just put in us?" And it's like,
And here's another problem: is a lot of people forget to mention that, like, oh, the vaccine, it's good, whatever, and something happens. Let's say, what happened to my cousin. He can't sue Pfizer or whatever. I think it was Pfizer.
Yeah.
Because of the 1986, was it Child Vaccination Injury Act? Probably butchering.
Where essentially the company.
It's essentially you cannot hold the vaccine manufacturer responsible. They have a no fault guarantee.
Any at all.
For anything. So, like, say you have a vaccine and get a negative reaction, like my cousin did, or like I did with the flu vaccine a few years back. Say that you get that.
Too bad.
You're fucked. Get lost. That's pretty much it. No monetary compensation, though supposedly through there's another program that Reagan made at the same time called the Vaccination Protection program or something like that. I don't remember the specific names, though I do have them listed here. But it's essentially, it's not encouraging.
In this case, a business could and should still be held liable if they force you to get the vaccine. Then there should be a contract.
Absolutely.
Okay, I accept. I'm going to take this vaccine as long as if I have any bad side effects from it, you float the bill.
And I guarantee you, a lot of the businesses will be like, "Fuck, no, we ain't."
Yeah.
Because it's going to be like, "Well, we don't know what the fuck we're injecting you with."
Yeah.
And it's like, well,
okay,
why do you
here it is.
think
Here it
we
is.
get it
It's
then?
the national the National Childhood Vaccine Injury Act of 1980, which disavows any vaccine maker of responsibility and liability if someone is adversely affected as a result of the vaccine being.
I love how it's called, how the bill is called Child's Health, but it's very strictly anti-consumer health.
Mm-hmm. The reasoning for it was it's stupid, and I don't agree with it, because if you do something wrong, you should be held accountable. That goes without saying for anything. And especially this, because now especially with the whole forcing vaccine thing. So say someone gets adversely affected, and they do have programs, like contingency programs for this, like the National Vaccine Injury Compensation Program, which does absolutely dog shit. It's useless now. I don't think anyone even I doubt anyone even knows of it at this point, just because of how useless it is. More notably, though, you have the Vaccine Adverse Event Reporting System, or VAERS, which was my cousin had to, again, his mom had to get on the doctor's ass to actually get him to report it to VAERS, what happened to him. And reading the VAERS reports of the COVID-19 vaccines, you see a lot of myocarditis.
A lot of information that governments and certain companies are trying to suppress. They don't want that.
This is probably local to my region only, because it's a New York City ad for the vaccine. But it's essentially like they do mention side effects, but the side effects they mention, all of them, I'm quoting them here, are slight pain in the arm from getting stabbed with a needle there, fever, cough, and soreness in the arm now. And
not the actual side effect.
Yeah, that's it. They don't actually list the actual risks involved in getting this experimental procedure that the entirety of the world is being a guinea pig for. Because let's be honest, we are all guinea pigs right now for this new gene therapy treatment. I know it sounds very conspiracy theorist crackpot like that, but I mean that's just looking at it away from objective view.
This thing was pushed through super fast. I mean, when normal vaccines take years, sometimes over decades to make, and this thing got pushed out in a year.
I think the shortest vaccine was like 3 to 6 years. And that was the fastest vaccine ever up until now.
Yeah, because you can't get enough data to really tell what it's going to do.
Right, like again, we don't know. We don't even know what happens to pregnant people.
It's easy to kill. For example, it's easy to kill cancer. It's harder to keep the person alive after you've killed the cancer. Therein is the trick.
Yep. And that's the thing is, as I mentioned, like we don't know the long-term effects, like what happens to a pregnant woman when or a woman and who then gets pregnant and then has a kid, or even just like we don't have enough data on the long-term effects because it hasn't been out long enough to get any long-term effects. And the short-term effects aren't exactly, boosting in confidence.
Yeah, really.
Myocarditis is a very serious thing. Not to mention, like, some people have gotten, I know an old person, one of the stories I read, they got a stroke. It could have been, it may have not been directly from the vaccine. It could have been, like, a pre-existing condition. But the vaccine itself did essentially act as a catalyst for that condition that then gave him a stroke. And, thanks to the Childhood Vaccination Act of 1986, they can't do anything. Like, great, now that person just has a stroke and has to recover from that. And a stroke is a pretty serious thing, too. Like, that.
Yeah.
Watching my grandfather try and recover from that breaks my heart a lot. Because he used to be really active. He was 83 when he got the stroke. And prior to that, like, literally, like, the day before, every day he would go for a walk. And I mean, like, a 2-mile walk every day. In his 80s. He's still active. Not in the best shape in the world, but he's not, like, decrepit, need a cane or anything. Now he's in a wheelchair. At best, he needs a walker. It sucks. He hates it. So it's definitely not fun.
Another thing I would like to say is that with all the varying opinions and bits of data coming out about what is and what is not safe, you really need to listen and consider things on your own to some degree, because if anything, the government and the CDC, they've proven that a lot of times they're giving suggestions or they're saying what they know about what they know right then, but they really don't have any freaking clue. They're just this is the best we can tell you right now. It's up to you to make up your own mind about.
No, I think that
it
speaks volumes.
Come to your own conclusion about what is and what is not the best course of action.
Yep.
And even the information we're giving you right now, don't take it as 100% true. I mean,
don't go do effort and do research yourself just to be sure.
Yeah,
that's the best advice I can recommend. Because especially the CDC, don't trust them. That you can believe 100% just because they've contradicted themselves several times in the last year.
And it's a shame too, because it's like before it was, hey, these are the experts. And
they know what the doctor
now
said.
apparently they've decided to give up any kind of actual objectivity.
And also remember, the vaccine that they're pushing is not FDA approved.
Yeah, it is not.
But this is so that's why we don't like the idea of corporations and especially government entities like the city of New York, where I live, where they're mandating vaccine, or at least having the little vaccine passport, which is a huge fear of mine prior to the vaccine going really big. In just the city, like to go to specific areas, it sucks, and it's not right. Because it violates, I get it, yeah, it's supposed to be public health, but this isn't a matter of public health. This is a matter of taking away freedom and freedom of choice. This is violating the Hippocratic Oath and patient-to-doctor confidentiality. Like when you go to your doctor, you need to get a checkup and they find out something's wrong or whatever, and need to, try antibiotics or whatever. Like, that's between you and your doctor. Just the smallest thing. That's between you and your doctor. You can share it if you want. That's your prerogative, but your doctor can't. And you don't need to. So why it shouldn't be any different with the vaccine. Or any other vaccine. You don't need to share. Like, I've never I've had chickenpox. My brother didn't, so he had to get the chickenpox vaccine as a kid. But like, we never had to go somewhere, like, unless we're filling out medical reports for, like when we both broke our arm at different times. We had to fill out like stuff like that. But in terms of like going to a school, like to school, or going to XYZ location that's not a hospital, you never had to say, "Oh, I had the chickenpox vaccine," or "I didn't." That was never. Who gives a shit?
Well, and it does seem to fly in the face of HIPAA regulations already, in that you should not be having to give out any kind of health-related information to, especially your employer, let alone if, like some of these suggestions of, oh, if you go to the grocery store, you have to show your vaccine pass. Like, are you fucking kidding me? That's tyrannical.
Yeah.
And it's all because of a supposed plausible harm to others. And it's like, you just by going and driving your car, just by going and drinking.
Cars, there's more
how many alcoholics?
Auto-related deaths
people
are
up?
higher than COVID-19. Flu-related deaths
By
are actually
far.
higher. I'm not kidding. Flu-related deaths are actually higher than COVID-19 deaths. Like the flu can kill, the common cold can kill, anything can kill. I mean, that's.
It's like if everything, if the standard for the government controlling your actions is some kind of plausible harm, at that point, be prepared to live in a jail.
Or live in a
Roll
rubber
little
room with
cells,
a
control where you
hazmat
can go
suit.
with who.
Megsy one says, funny thing, my mom and stepdad tried to get me chickenpox as a kid. Yeah, remember chickenpox parties?
Mm-hmm.
By having me hang out with my friends who had it. Didn't get it anyway, but my stepdad did. Nice. Yeah, it sucks as an adult, but as a kid, like, you don't even like. Usually, like, I got it when I was like 2 years old. So, I don't even remember having it. And okay, now I'm immune to it. Like, I don't care. Like, I'd rather have, and that's the thing, is just based on what I know of my own biology and of others, from what I've done research on, odds are most people, like, if you're in good physical condition, you don't have any pre-existing conditions, like, you're just healthy, good shape, all that, you're better off getting the virus than you actually are. From some of the research I've done, I recommend you go do your own research to double check. You always got to make sure to check your references. But anyway, I think we should move on. That's why we don't like just corporations or government entities, anyone mandating vaccines specifically for COVID. But Cam, you mentioned abortion at one point, which is actually relevant because I have an article here saying that we need to see more parents having abortions in film and television.
Oh,
Like what?
I know. It's like, what the?
It's like, because it's like now, and one thing to all note, one thing to I will note here. My personal belief is that abortion should, as much as possible, be avoided, because to my mind, it is killing a potential baby human.
I agree.
If you don't see the fetus or whatever label you want to call it as a human being as it is now, it will be a human being. That is going to happen. Assuming that nature takes its normal course, the mom doesn't go and get sick or anything like that, that is going to become a human, a human child. That's an irrevocable fact. And that some people want to just go and destroy that. It's like, I'm personally against it. That being said, if I was royal dictator, I would not go and put any kind of mandate against it, just because at the same time, people are going to do it. No matter if it's allowed or not. Now, that being said, I personally don't think that tax money, government money, should be going to fund abortion clinics. But, like I said, people are going to do it no matter what. And I'd rather that, since people are going to do it no matter what, that it be done in as safe a manner as possible. With actual decent equipment and like a doctor's office kind of shit, and not in some fucking back alleyway or any kind of bullshit like that. But to go be like, oh, we need to normalize this. No.
And you know what? You guys ever? I never watched it, but you guys know that movie they did on the what was it called? Hold on a second.
Oh, that one movie with like that one actor and like the person who did the thing. That movie.
Gosnell, The Trial of America's Biggest Serial Killer. It came out 2018. It's a drama film starring Dean Cain, who plays a detective trying to uncover this murder. Essentially, it's an abortion clinic where the guy's killing like live babies. Like it's not like a month long. Like we're talking well past third trimester baby.
Yeah,
and it's an interesting story. I don't know much about it, unfortunately, so I can't say more. I don't know more to say.
Well, I mean, but
it's on
in just the political realm. If a pregnant mother is killed, say with a drunk driver, that counts as 2 counts of murder. So,
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's sickening because it's not like, look, if you want to have like a TV show, like I think in the Invincible comics, I'm gonna major spoilers right now. So if you don't want to be spoiled potentially for the show and for the comic book, just mute it right now. Okay, so in the comic book, Eve, well after Eve and Mark start dating in the comics, he goes to space at one point, and it comes back like a few months later, and she's a wreck. Like, she's happy to see him and all, but like she's a wreck. She doesn't look good. And turns out she had a kid and had aborted it, like his kid. He was in space and she didn't know what to do. He wasn't there, and it sucks. Like, it was a very good way of doing it because it felt realistic. Like, it wasn't a case of, oh, abortion is good. It was no. It was she's. They're both like 19 or 20 or something. Like, they're young. And
yeah, I mean, they're young. They don't know what to do with the situation.
They didn't know what to do. One of them wasn't even on the planet. It's like, so what do you do? So, like, they just weren't ready for it, and they just didn't know what to do, and so, and it haunts them. Like, it haunts both of them. Like, even, like, he feels bad. It's like, and I thought it was really well done. Like, that's how you tell that type of story. It's not something to be promoted and held as this morally, objectively morally high thing. It's something, not that you should look, if it's your choice. If you want to do it, fine, but personally speaking, I don't think you should, because I agree with you, Kim. A baby, second there's a baby there, that's a baby.
There's so many other options out there for contraception.
Yeah, you have a lot of control, birth control and condom methods and stuff like that. You also have the fact that, okay, you have the baby, and if you really aren't ready for it and all that, there's adoption. Like, there's a lot of couples that want a baby and can't have it, or are gay and physically just can't have it either. But
I'll note that adopting, at least in the U.S., meaning like if you want to adopt a kid in the U.S., is apparently ridiculously hard, from what I've heard.
Yeah, it is. But it's apparently, this article goes on to talking about how we need to have more abortions in film and entertainment, which is so odd. Here, like the article says, countless studies have highlighted the importance of representation in the media, be it race, gender, relationships, body size, and shit. It's pretty much all the, in other words, diversity, representation, let's face, was it body shaming, right? That's what they do, where it's like, you can't have, you can't say, oh, it's bad to be out of shape.
Well, I mean, also too, I think most people don't say it's like bad as in morally bad, but that it's unhealthy.
Right. That's what I meant. Like, the point is saying anything negative at all about it is bad.
Well, exactly, and therein is
that's
the
what body
shaming
like,
is. You can't say anything about me with my choices, but I'm going to say all kinds of shit about your choices.
This is a good point. Megjo brings up that his stepdad believes the only exceptions for an abortion is if the child is a product of rape or incest. Which usually means that the mother's a victim, regardless.
That's your choice.
Again, yeah, I think
and I do agree.
It's a matter of choice. It shouldn't be promoted.
Rape or anything like that. Sure. Okay, I can understand that. But when it's just two regular Joe Schmoes and it's like, oh hey, I don't want you to have this kid. Get rid of it. It's like, look, you had a lot of options before.
Let me put it this way: there's no, unless you're a fucking moron, there's no way you're having sex without knowing the possibility of pregnancy exists.
Yeah. And that being said too, I've seen the argument that like, oh hey, people who are against abortion, they don't care once the baby is born. And I was like, I don't want to see kids be like growing up in households where like they won't be able to be supported at all.
Right, which is why I'd say I'd rather see a kid be given to adoption where they get a good family, two parents, a stable home.
It's like it's not like you go and guy sticks his dick in a woman's vagina and the pizza pops out. That's not how that works.
Hey, that would be a really good way to get pizza.
That'd be
Would
really.
it though?
That'd be really.
Can you choose the flavor? Like, can you choose the toppings,
No,
or is that?
Just stop this one right there.
You can only choose if it's stuffed crust or not.
I'm not going to ask stuff with what. One of the the article continues. One of the main ways that people learn about information experiences is through television and film, particularly when it comes to sex and healthcare, which is not good because that should be the school. I'm going to be honest.
That tells you too that even
that should be the school.
Which, again, we're being told schools are so great and so wondrous in the information they give out, but that even schools are not providing material. If you're expecting that it's TV, that's how people are learning. Like, really?
So apparently 43 television shows feature an abortion storyline.
And that's not
only
enough.
31 shows featured a character who underwent the procedure. In film, on the other hand, there was a large increase in number of abortion depictions, 12 in 2020 compared to just 3 in 2019. Honestly, this is so not. You know what? This is something. If you want to do a film like, as I mentioned, the Gosnell serial killer movie that Dean Cain did, where you're doing a film about either the evils of abortion or just a film about you're doing like an emotional drama piece, right? Where it's like you're showing it's a woman going through abortion and what the toll takes on it, because
it does take a toll.
It's not just an emotional toll either. There are physical and medical side effects to having an abortion, like sterility.
Yeah.
Is one of the major ones. So and that's not talked about at all. Hell, I didn't even know about it until I did research when I saw this article, or after reading this article. So, that's how out of the way, they don't tell you this shit. So, and I doubt these TV shows that they want to make are going to tell you that shit. Or it's like, great, now even if I wanted to have a kid, I can't. That sucks.
To me, it sounds like they're trying to normalize it, and it isn't something that should be normalized.
No, they totally want to normalize it.
Decide to pop down the street and have it done. This should be something that you think very hard about, because it is not trivial.
Exactly.
They totally want to normalize it, and I hate that, because that's, first off, I personally don't believe in it, but I also believe in free choice, so if you want to do that, that's fine. I just don't think it's the right thing to do.
Yeah.
But, they want to normalize it to where it is the right thing to do when it's not.
They want to make it a morally guided action in that you do what we say and that's moral, and if you go against what we say, that's immoral. It's like, nah.
I think that wraps it up. I think we can go on for the hours, but I don't think we want to bore the audience with the stuff here. I already put the article in the description, so if you guys want to read this for yourselves and have your own opinions on it, let us know, whether in the chat right now or in the comment section if you're watching this on the replay.
And tell us how stupid we are.
Yeah, tell us how stupid we are, or give us your opinions on the matter, because everyone's opinions matter. Supposedly. Shall we end it with some last good news from DC?
Wait, there's good news? When the fuck?
It's decent news. Pretty much, it's the Superman and Lois show that's going on right now. Actually, did a very interesting take on a classic Superman story, being the death, or not the death of Superman, but the reign of Superman. So if anyone doesn't know, the Reign of the Superman story is post Superman's death, where he fights Doomsday, giant monster. He's dead, and then you have 4 new Supermen take his place. Steel, John Henry Irons. Steel is pretty much the first black Superman. Eradicator, who's like an android, sorta.
But I barely know her.
Superboy, who's a clone of Superman. And I said 4, but there's only 3. So yeah. And they kind of have all 3 of those characters in the show, and in a very interesting way. I've been watching it, and it's not bad. First off, it's not woke, and that's great. Like one of the only CW things that's not woke. It's also the only CW thing I've watched in the last 5-6 years. Before this show, the last thing I saw was season 2 of The Flash when it came out. So, not saying much, but it actually is pretty decent. I like the guy playing Superman. He does a good job. Lois kind of grew on me. I didn't like her at first, just because, I'm so used to Lois and Clark Adventures of Superman Lois, where she's hot. But, this is an older, Superman and Lois, where they have 15-year-old kids. Like, they have twins that are 15 years old, so, okay, it makes sense. It's actually a pretty decent show. It's not great. Like, there's a lot of needless CW drama bullshit. But it's decent. It's a good Elseworlds type Superman story, I guess would be the best way to say it. Megan One says, "Cowabunga pizza time," referring to what we talked about earlier. And
No.
Fun fact: Reign of the Superman was taken from the original Superman story by Siegel and Schuster, Reign of the Superman. I was shocked by the swerve of Captain Luthor being no spoiler. I mean, I kind of spoiler it here. He's John Henry Irons. He uses the name Captain Luthor at one point. First arrives. He's from like an alternate dimension. Weird. But it's an interesting show, and I think I'm going to end it on that. Anything?
No, I'm ready to call it.
All right.
Good.
So, hope you guys enjoyed episode 3 of Insert Name Here. And that's going to be all for today. Catch us tomorrow at 6 p.m. Eastern for some Star Citizen Alpha 3.14 gameplay. We're going to play it live and hopefully not encounter
As opposed to dead.
And hopefully not encounter too many 30Ks. But it's a lot of fun. The new turret gameplay is really fun. Missile operator mode is somewhat glitchy. Let me put it this way. If you're going to use it, have a dedicated person using it. It's not great if you're doing combat. It's good for solo combat, like you're just one-on-one another ship, but if you're doing the Ninetales event, have an operator mode. Have a dedicated operator, because you're going to accidentally target someone and get a crime stat and be screwed. But yeah, so if you guys enjoyed the episode, let us know what you thought in the comment section below, because we do need feedback to ever improve ourselves, which honestly totally need to. We're not good at all. But just what do you guys think of all the stuff we talked about? The silliness of the Transformers Gundam mix-up, and COVID-19 vaccine mandates, and the Suicide Squad movie. What do you guys think of all that stuff and more? Let us know in the comment section. If you want to help support the channel, you guys know the drill. Links in the description for all our various merch stores. Subscribe and all that. Until we'll see you guys tomorrow night, hopefully.